transition, guys. Maybe it's about to happen. Waiting patiently. Yeah. Know your place, Keiju. Waiting patiently. Yo. Ah, dude, it's too late for that. These shoes are not too bad. They're like big and soft. No. It's fine. No, it's fine. It's fine. Trust. Hang on, folks. It's the deep breath before the plunge. Okay, she's getting stuff set up. We wait patiently. Oh, one of you should post this on Reddit, by the way. One of you guys should post this on Reddit. Is Anima here? Anima? Where's Anima? Anima's my usual guy. I mean, two of the most spectacularly flamboyant people in the entire Overwatch community collaborating. Why is money literally not pouring into my pants as we speak? I don't really know why I pour into my pants. Hello, Age Light. Good to see you. Wait until you can pull 25% of my view count. And
Hello.
Oh. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah.
Sick.
How you been?
I've been good. Sorry about that. I'm literally like ran inside. I was at a flag football tournament 2 hours away, and I ran just a little bit over. So I zoomed in, but we were good to go. So I appreciate you doing this.
Sweet. I'm excited. I don't know what we're doing, but
I don't know what
down
we're
for
doing
whatever.
either. Okay, sick. Is your OBS, all that kind of stuff set up, and you're good to go on your end?
Oh yeah, I'm already streaming.
Oh, okay, sick. Okay, so I really wanted to pick your brain on, I guess, 3 things. So one, I read the article from the Ottawa City News, got posted on Cal. I was like, oh, that's cool. It baited me, and I got pretty ticked off because it said something about the Overwatch League soundtrack, and I was like, oh, yes. And then I'm like, oh, no, because it had nothing to do with the soundtrack. But there was a lot of pretty sick info about your background, most of which I was completely ignorant on. I mean, obviously, everybody knew your grind through contenders and all that stuff, and I was fairly familiar that you'd had some background in other esports, but a lot of other information that I don't think most folks knew and certainly didn't know a lot about. So that was one. The second one, I just wanted to like get some background on like what broadcasting is and like the Overwatch League, and then I guess what just got you into Overwatch in the first place. So if you had were interested in doing some sort of gameplay review as well, to kind of like look at things that you look for, I'm down with that as well. So it's up to you.
Yeah, sure. What question should I start with?
Well, I'm gonna put on my interview pants here, and
Okay.
I'm gonna ask you. Should I call you? What do you prefer? Lemon, kiwi, Jen? Like, what does it matter?
I feel like we're friends now. We can say Jen. What should I call you?
All right, you can call me Jacob if you want. It's fine. We have the J name, so we have to mesh. Okay.
Sweet.
All right, so Jen, your article was brilliant by Neil Davidson, the Canadian Press. It was super interesting. I was a huge fan. Really cool. But the thing that they just really dropped the ball on is I have no flippin' idea how and why did you get a bachelor's degree, and I'm reading this, biology, but I'm cheating, okay? Biological and biomedical sciences, and then what could possibly possess you, as if that wasn't bad enough, to get a master's in cellular and molecular biology. So I mean, in all honesty, like, what was like your initial purpose? Because like we're always like those kids, you know. It's like I want to be a fireman when I grow up. I want to be you know, an esport player or whatever. Why? What got you started down that path?
Well, I originally wanted to go through med school and do doctor things, and I chose like that school in particular because it had a med school attached to it, and it's like bonus points if you went to Laurentian, blah blah blah.
Nice.
So the biomed degree went 4 years through that, and kind of at the end of my bachelor's, I did like a research project, and I kind of like decided, well, med school wasn't really for me, you know.
Why not?
Like it's just like it's super demanding. It's a lot of mental stress to always go for like 90s and just be just perfect all the time.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you usually have to like do a bunch of volunteer work and like, you know, boost up your resume to prove you're a good community person or whatever. And that was just like ended up being a lot more work than I was prepared to do. And I kind of like realized that the doctor lifestyle was going to be like living and breathing at the hospital.
Yep,
So
yep, yep.
yeah, so I was just like, I want to like have a job where I can have also the time to spend the money that I earn.
Hmm.
So I was like something else in the medical field. And then when I did that research project for my bachelor's, I kind of realized like, wow, research is really interesting because it's all about solving problems and leaving your footprint on the science world and try to better society,
Uh-huh.
and by finding out kind of the big questions. And
That's
so
sick.
I originally, yeah, so I did my bachelor's on actually like the bacteria in the soil and how, because in Canada there's a lot of salting of the roads because
Oh,
of
that's cool.
ice and stuff. So my project was about like how like salting roads kind of affects the bacteria in the soil because the bacteria in the soil is what kind of keeps everything growing and the nutrients going around. And
That's
so
super interesting. I was literally just reading something about that like a year ago and how like they were saying like even sometimes like scrubbing vegetables and fruits isn't like super heavy isn't always super good because of like some of the biome in your gut benefits from the biome in the healthy soil. It was like super weird, but it was like super cool.
yeah, I didn't even know like there were bacteria. I don't know why I didn't think about it, but I didn't even know
Yeah.
like bacteria in soil was that important. And then through kind of like, and it's just independent work. Like you're your own boss. You're figuring things out on your own. I've always liked challenges. So then I wanted to do more research, so I went and did a master's. This one was I leaned more into diabetes, obesity, and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
problems that I wanted to solve. And
Uh-huh.
that's I figured like I want to do a research project that I can apply something later on. So I thought about like medical sales or just medical equipment and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Um, and really just the body's microbiome was like the biggest research topic at the time and what I was really interested in.
Yeah.
And then as pretty much around oh geez, how did this coincide with Overwatch? I think it was in my bachelor's, maybe master's, that Overwatch came out. And then I was already doing esports on weekends anyway, but
Mm-hmm.
then Overwatch picked up and I basically moved to the United States after my like right after my master's. I didn't even like go to my graduation ceremony.
Jeez.
And and
That's like grind set level.
and
Holy
I was just
smokes.
basically like I'm gonna do casting for as long as it can sustain me. And then I've obviously finished my degree, so I plan on going back to it once casting kind of dies out.
Okay. So I guess you talked a little bit like the medical thing, and it makes total sense. Everybody knows the doctor where like you live and breathe that. You went down the biological route. Looks like you had some really interesting things. But I guess for me the question is still like the transition into casting. You said that you were initially involved in esports before then. Like what do you just like a video game player or were you involved? Because nobody knows your background. You just kind of showed up in Contenders, at least
I just showed
nobody
up.
I know. So, like either you spawned within like along with Jeff Kaplan in the Overwatch community, or like there was a build up towards that, and that has to be an interesting story.
Yeah, I played a lot of Call of Duty for, since I was a kid, and that was like my
Hmm.
first esport. And while I was in the middle of my bachelor's, I just like wanted to be a competitive player, but I wasn't like taking it like hyper serious. Like I want to be a professional player that does this full time. I just kind of like was trying to get on teams, and I really liked. At the time, it was like there was like a special ranked mode where you could basically take your team and stack as a team, and then your team would get a rank
Oh,
in
that's
the
cool.
game. And it was like such a cool way to just and I was really into playing. And then eventually there was like a women's tournament thing that popped up because
Hmm.
they were trying to like get more women into Call of Duty and stuff, and they wanted women to work it, so casting it, playing it, adminning it, all that. So I signed up to cast, and because I just like the strategy at the time, Call of Duty had a lot of strategy, uh, and so I signed up for casting, and I kind of realized that wow, I would make so much more money casting the game than I would trying to like compete in these like 2K or 5K tournaments.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you
so
think
then
that's
I did
because of like demand, or is it just there aren't a lot of people that have that skill set that you need to have a good casting capability?
I don't know. I think it's like when people see video games, they obviously see it as a way to play it and
Yeah.
they'd rather play something. And it's
Yeah.
not very obvious how to get into casting either. There's no book. You can't really Google it.
No.
There's no class. Well, now there's some classes you can take, and
Really,
depending
there's
on
casting classes.
like I guess like the
That's
traditional
hilarious.
broadcast thing. It's not like esports casting. It's like
I see.
because like Landon, for example, Landon from Call of Duty, he did like
Yeah,
a whole broadcast degree, and there's some people who have that kind of background,
cool.
but
I
it's
didn't
not
know
very
that.
obvious. So I think there's some like roadblocks to figuring out how to get into the gig. But yeah,
Interesting.
I kind of did that, and I did Call of Duty for like a bunch of years, like probably 4 or 5 something years, and then Overwatch came out, and I transitioned to that because COD has like a new game every year, and it's very stressful to just like learn a new game every year,
Yep.
and it's
Yep.
just completely different, and
Yep.
not what you originally signed up for, you know?
No, no. So you're saying you were to blame for the slow content cycle in Overwatch?
Oh, totally.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It was like everybody was like complaining from a content side of things, like right before Overwatch 2 was released, about like how slow it was as a game. But like as a coach, it was like a little bit of selfishness. Where I was like, yeah, sick. Now I can feel like I can actually like learn and study things, like actually seriously learn. And now the cycle started where it's like new heroes, new this, new that, new synergies, and you got it. It's like, it's crazy. Okay, so that's great. And then I guess transitioning into Overwatch, like, well, can you kind of describe your like path through Contenders and then transitioning into Overwatch League? Like, what got you started in Contenders? Did you have any cool experiences or funny stories from while you were in Contenders? And then your transition to Overwatch League as well? Because I remember we had spoken before, talking about. It was ages ago. It was about like who do you think are some underrated or best players in Contenders in NA and EU? So you were even like not just casting, but you were very much involved in like the reporting and the casting and getting to know the players and getting to know the scene. So you were very invested in it. So like, what was that process like? And then what was it like actually transitioning to, I guess, the ultimate goal for you?
Yeah, it was kind of funny because we all started with Broadcast GG, which was like this kind of like group of newbie casters where we were all
Mm.
just friends and we all wanted to be casters, but we weren't really sure how. So we just kind of like made this Discord, and we basically told teams. So at the time, like this is where like a lot of big casters started, like Trid, Jaws, Leg Day, myself. Pretty much any Contenders caster has gone through that. Um, and we started at the time where we were just like telling teams that we would record scrims for them in
Mm-hmm.
exchange for us being able to use the footage to practice cast. So we had like a good relationship with teams kind of doing that, because they got free VOD records and we got
Oh,
like,
nice.
yeah,
That's
a
actually really
way of
smart. You see, I don't know these things at all. I don't think like a lot of people know these things. They're like, do you just show up and cast and then you go home, or like, how do you even practice? How did you start? That's fascinating.
Yeah, so we just like had these recorded scrim VODs. Now they weren't amazing because observing Overwatch is very difficult, but it was like free cam and just kind of getting used to completing a sentence and then giving it off to someone else and figuring out like, do you want to do play by play? Do you want to do color? Or who do you want to cast with? There's like a lot of beginner stuff there. And then eventually we, for some reason, Broadcast GG got to do the first like broadcasts for Open Division,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all free, so it's like free broadcast experience, and all got used to like what's a call time, how to look into the camera, like
Mm.
dressing for broadcast, studying for broadcast, and then Open Division to trials, and then eventually when you were good enough and committed enough, my first region was Contenders South America.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Yeah, which was a long time ago, I think 2018, 2019.
Yeah, that
But
hasn't been around for a while.
that community was so fucking nice to us. Like we were all super new and we don't know anything about anything South American related, and they were just so welcoming and gave us so much information. The players were very accessible, so we could like ask them questions and kind of exchange that feedback. And then oh geez, I think it was Contenders South America, then Contenders China and Korea, I think were
Oh,
my next two regions. So then that went from like normal o'clock to fuck o'clock, where I'm up at
yeah.
like 3, 4 a.m. and shit. And
Yeah, yikes, that's brutal. I coached a little bit in Australia, and it was the same kind of thing. It was like I had a job at the time too. It was like you get up at 3 o'clock and then you work until 10, and it's just like, ugh, it kills me, man. It sucks.
it was hard. And then also just casting the game in a different, the game's like sounds are not the ones you're used to. Like the voice lines
Oh,
sound
that's
different.
right. That's right. The voice lines. I don't even know what the Chinese was. Was it Chinese Contenders as well? Is it like Chinese voice lines?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I've actually heard those.
it was really hard because even the voice actors are different, so you kind of have to relearn the game of
Jeez.
just what does the self-destruct sound like, because a lot of casting has to do with like sound cues
Yeah.
and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that was like a whole thing, along with just trying to have a personality at 5 o'clock in the morning. Not a morning person. That shit was
I mean,
hard.
that doesn't even count as a morning person. That's like morning before morning person. That's like next level difficulty. Yikes. That's insane.
Yeah. And then in China was super hard to cast, and like, you know, shout out to Kenobi and like other people who are
Uh,
still going through it or went through it more than I did. But like, you know, this was before 222 log, so it was like 5 DPS, 1 support, or like 4 DPS, 2
oh yeah,
support,
shoot.
and it was like a fucking crazy meta because China was like all over the place when it came to their meta specifically.
Right.
And
It's like
every
the homegrown
year,
Shengdu mentality, basically.
exactly. And every year the players change their usernames for some reason. So you can't even build like a good history log on a lot of people because they just for some reason change their tags, and then you're not sure if they're the same person.
Yeah.
You can't talk to the players either because they're like only speaking Chinese, or they're
Yeah.
only speaking Korean,
Yeah.
or they don't have Twitter. They have like Weibo or whatever the fuck, and
Yeah.
then
And
so
that
it
has
was
to be
like
hard because you
hard.
you were talking about in your article is like how you like try to like do dig research and find more personality little tidbits and then use that, but like that must have been so hard with that community, because like you said, you don't speak the language, you don't know the players that well. It's hard to communicate with the players. You might not even know the players' backgrounds whatsoever outside of anything you can dig up in Wikipedia. How did you deal with that? Did you just kind of focus on the gameplay and just do as best as you can with that, or were there other storylines that you could kind of, I guess, milk from that situation?
Yeah, dude, that whole region was just a blur for me. Like, yeah, there was just you had to only study basically the strats that they had. So like I keep a log of basically like every comp that a team has run on like every map, and then I
Mhm.
would like compile like map statistics and comp trends, like when they would swap to this hero, like under what circumstances, and like just general notes. And I just had to make all my narratives just strat focused.
Yeah.
And because sometimes you would have like cool community members that would translate some, or like would be able to go find like those Weibo posts or
Yeah.
whatever social media post, come
Yeah.
to Twitter, translate it for us, and then we were able to kind of use those as sources.
Right.
But and then you try to have like a backlog of whatever other team someone has been on, so you can like at least depend on their previous results. But it was definitely hard to not have like any conversation with them. And sometimes there would be like a coach that could help, or we could, you know, we'd message the coach and the coach would try to figure out like Google Translate, and then we would try
That's
to
a cool
have
idea.
something there.
Yeah.
But
That's a cool
it was
idea.
tough, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in a way it kind of like isolates an aspect of casting so that you're able to train it. If you don't have to worry about creating storylines, then you can just focus on strategy. Then maybe in some way it can actually improve your strategy if you're just focusing on that one aspect. It's like isolation training accidentally.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you finish, you go with Korean, you go with Chinese contenders. What was the next step for you? How long did you last at that before you like imploded internally?
I just it was tough. I tried to do like other roles too. Like that's when like Jane was like in the scene, and I was
Yeah.
able to learn a lot under him through like content management and
Mhm.
content creation, and more of like the behind the scenes stuff, you know, getting to travel to homestands and
Mhm.
figure out if I wanted to take a more like content side of things while balancing casting. You know, you just got to stay busy with casting. Like you can't really put all your eggs in the casting basket. You have to
Yeah.
like build your brand as much as possible. So I was trying to like make content, meet people, like just work different jobs, from like adminning leagues to you know, try to learn production, to like mentoring other casters, like just like stayed busy as much as possible. And everyone at the time was like trying to gun, like the big goal for contenders people at the time was getting contenders North America and Europe, or
Right.
mainly North America, because that
Right.
was like the highest viewership region. That's where everyone was scouting from for Owl. So if you were casting like contenders North America, that's like your best shot to go into
Right.
Owl. Um, so like I eventually made it to that and was doing Europe, and that was the year they did North America and Europe under the same broadcast, I
Uh-huh.
think. So then I got to that was kind of overwhelming a bit to learn like two regions and
Yeah.
all of the teams, and be able to basically cast like any of them at any point,
Yeah.
along with the different hours that because Europe would be more in the morning and stuff like that. But obviously that was way better than casting 4 a.m.
That's true.
Korea
That's true.
stuff.
But now you also had like storylines that you had to include in now, because now you're going in like English speaking regions for the most part, and so you had to kind of there was more ceiling, I guess, there to cast it. It's easier, but also like there's a lot more there, you know. So
Yeah,
how was that?
and to catch up on all that
transition?
history, catching up on all that history, sorry, yeah, it was like hard because a lot of the players in Contenders North America were at least people that I casted in trials. So
Yep.
I had like I casted Contenders North American trials before I did North America, and so I kind of recognized a lot of players and was able to build off of that. But it was definitely like a learning thing. But at least, oh no, I was casting with Hurix at the time, who then knew pretty much everything about everyone in North America. So I was able to kind of lean on him and what he knew.
Uh-huh.
And then eventually I casted with Leg Day, and then he knew a lot about the Europe side of things, and then I kind of built my knowledge base of
Oh,
North
sick.
America, so we were able to kind of trade that off.
Sick.
And yeah,
So best of both worlds in that regard.
yeah, I kind of really liked casting Contenders, and I said this, I think this was mentioned in the article too, but just like I always felt like I needed to prove myself, whether it's like a girl trying to cast or just like a caster trying to make it to Owl, whatever side you want to see. It's just I was always trying to like prove myself to people, and because also like no one takes casters seriously, or not a lot of people do, so it's like you're trying to prove that you're a knowledgeable person when it comes to casting. And when it came to Contenders, I kind of related to the fact that players and Contenders are always trying to prove themselves and that they're good enough to be an Owl. So I really liked those storylines and you could really see like the passion in Contenders, and with so little resources, like obviously like a lot of the players that are in Contenders are doing this to like achieve that big dream. And I just felt like really responsible to be part of like making to frame them to look good for Owl. Although the scouts obviously do an amazing job of not giving a shit what I say and just looking at the gameplay, but I felt responsibility of at least
every little
scouts.
bit helps. Every little bit helps for sure. And I think even like the things like you did, like that wonderful article on like the specific standouts and Contenders, and like if you were living under a rock as an Overwatch League coach, that was a good start, right? Those are the good names to put out, and I'm sure the players really, really appreciated that. And I think that is like 100% accurate, you know, where it's like you're in Contenders, you're in whether it's casting or playing, and it's a lot of work, a lot of skill sets to balance, and there's no guarantee of like the reward that you're seeking. So there's like that underdog mentality, like that committed, that like, you know, I got this, you know. I think like there's a lot of carryover between playing and casting there. So the transition happened. How did it happen? Leak the juice. Was it exciting?
Geez.
Was it like anticlimactic? Like, how did you feel?
It was like rough because, like, to be completely honest, like Leg Day and I were thinking about like quitting. Not like quitting, but we were just starting to believe like the dream wasn't gonna happen.
Yep.
Because like the year right before that, they promoted Vicky.
Yep.
And love Vicky to death and all that. It's just like I thought I had like more experience and I thought I was gonna be next. And I like once like Vicky got picked up or like other people got picked up over me, I just kind of like thought I got skipped on.
Yep.
And that then I started overthinking like, oh, why did I get skipped on? And then Leg Day's been skipped on more than I fucking have because they promoted Jaws and didn't promote him. And then he got stuck in like the tier 2 system for longer than I have actually. And so we kind of just started thinking like, oh, if they skip on us, like they must not like us. There's something we're not doing, or something we're not doing well enough. And you know, Leg Day was trying to go to other games. I was like looking around, and then the negotiations happened for 2022, and like shit hit the fan with some of the talent not getting the numbers they wanted, I think, from what I heard. Don't quote me on that. But then there was obviously some vacated spots, and that's where Leg Day and I came in. And the negotiations for that were like scary and not like super certain either. But then we eventually made it in, and Leg Day and I fucking like cried our way through it because like the negotiations were really hard because we basically said like because it's like you don't negotiate like as a package, but you obviously want to tell each other like what numbers you're getting and what the deal is, because if one of you is unhappy, then what does the other person do? And it's like better to stay together. And obviously I'm not trying to like leak stuff, but basically we told each other like there's a chance that one of us goes up and the other one doesn't. and we were like getting prepared to basically like cast or break up because we had been casting for like 2-3 years together or some shit. And we basically told each other like, hey, if you get an owl offer, please tell me. Hey, if you get an owl offer, please tell me. Like, we basically told each other like, we're not going to keep secrets, and if we get a good deal and the other one isn't happy, we're not going to hold each other hostage.
Right.
Just we both want to achieve a dream, and we're happy for the other person. Because we also thought we weren't sure we were going to get picked up as a duo. This is like even before we even got the offer.
Yeah.
Because like Blizzard's only been picking up solos for the longest time. Like when they picked up Jaws without Leg Day, when they picked up fucking, I don't know, anybody without the other person. Like they've never usually picked up duos. They've always like scrambled everybody. So we were just like, hey, like, and that's what I really appreciate about working with Leg Day, is that we had like a really trusted, we still do have like a trusted friendship where if we got an owl offer, we were going to tell each other. And then we obviously did. And then it was like, oh my God, you too? And then we got to like just, you know, talk to each other and move up together, and it all worked out. And I'm just so glad and happy it was him too, because like it's already a stressful environment to like go from the viewership that was Contenders at the time, which is like less than 10K, to like Overwatch League viewership, which can be fucking crazy numbers.
Right.
And the amount of, and also just the viewership of Contenders is very like, we love everyone. It's very kumbaya in Contenders.
It's a tight-knit group. It's the open wild hunting zone as soon as you get into Overwatch League.
Yeah, and then as soon as you get to Overwatch League, everyone like hates everyone and stuff. So it's very not as much kumbaya. So I'm so glad it was with Leg Day instead of like someone else. I had to like learn all this, because casting gets better as you know the person better too.
Right.
And
it's a conversation almost. It's like a conversation that 40,000 people are listening in on, and you have to make entertaining at the same time. That's tricky to do. That's tricky.
That's how we moved up, and yeah, it was kind of, I don't know, it's crazy.
Yeah, it sounds crazy. So transitioning from Contenders to Overwatch League, obviously the viewership and the game moves faster and all this sort of things happen. But what were some of the big things that maybe aren't so obvious in terms of problems or good things or bad things about casting in Overwatch League as opposed to Contenders?
I think the most like negative thing, which like I knew was going to come with the territory, is just like a lot of harassment and stuff. Like people kind of like see casters as these like hyper big celebrities, and whenever people like see celebrities, they always feel like the need to like bring them down a notch and feel like they're these just figures that aren't people, and they don't have to talk to them like people.
Right.
And so like kind of that harassment until I got to like talk to people. And I think that's kind of why I started streaming too, is that people just saw like my casting persona, or just saw me as like someone on broadcast and not as like a person.
Yep.
So when I started streaming, I was able to like be myself and talk people, not face to face, but you know what I mean? Like more one-on-one. And that got people to like get to know me, and
that's a good idea,
build like,
actually.
And yeah, you just kind of build like a nice community of people that want to support you more, and so then you can like filter out your social media and stuff.
Yeah, that becomes a necessity. That's like the first thing I tell any player in Overwatch League is like, it doesn't matter if you're literally proper and you play amazing. Proper as at the season at least half a dozen times, and competitive Overwatch or Twitter has gotten like flamed to an unbelievable amount. He's the best there is right now. So like, it doesn't matter whether you're good, whether you're bad, whether you're average. If I lose a game, well, what is Spilo doing, man? These guys don't even look like coordinated at all. And then, you know, if we win a game, oh man, that's just this. We have a coaching staff gift. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's rough, you know. And I think, like you said, people put us on pedestals as celebrities, but in a way, like, it's a pretty small community still. You know, we're still very accessible. You know, my Twitter messages technically are open, you know what I'm saying, as are yours. So it's like, if you're an ugly or a mean person, you have the tools to really voice your opinion in a very visible way, and that could be difficult to deal with.
And I kind of got that like coaching perspective too. Like when the McGravy incident happened, I messaged like McGravy and just kind of like talked about all of that, and just like the weird, because another negative thing about casting is that you can't you can't be just a normal fan anymore. I can't just like go on Twitter and be like, my favorite player in the world is Proper, or like I absolutely fucking can't stand Spylo and his team. Like I can't like do that anymore, you know?
What do you mean you can't do that anymore? Is that implying that happened before?
No.
Hang on a second, man. Yeah, that's hilarious.
So like I can't like have my own opinions because it's like the word influencer is like super cringe and I hate to use it, but it's actually really accurate because there's a lot of people who just are brain empty and just basically if they see a caster or player say something, they basically follow that opinion. So if I say like this player is fucking trash, then a lot of the like people either that like me just because they want to just follow me because they like me and they want to have that opinion too, or they'll be like, oh, this caster said it and they're a respected person in the community, so it must be true. So it's like
saying a bad word in front of like a toddler. You're like, oh no, don't say that, don't say that, don't say that, I shouldn't have said that, don't say that, please.
Exactly. So it's like it's an awkward gray area where you want to be because about being a brand is about being relatable and being a normal person and having opinions, because as a person, a brand, you're gonna have your opinions out on the fucking internet. But while being a broadcast person, you can't exactly broadcast all of your opinions, especially the negative ones, or at least you need to like weigh those very fucking carefully. So the hard part of being a caster is actually just like trying to balance like the hyper professional, like everything I say matters and reflects on me and may like influence many people to think this way also, but then you also want to be a normal person that has opinions, that wants to tweet about the game that you love just as much as everyone else, you just happen to be on camera for. And so then I got to talk to McGravy about just like that, kind of explain to coaches like, hey, like it's really hard for us to like tweet things while okay, so we only tweet positive things. If we tweet negative things, are we just fucking witch hunting you, or are we just bullying you on main? And then I got to understand like the coach's perspective of like, man, it fucking sucks to have like fans like rail on you all the time, especially after a loss, and like go after you on like personal levels. But then what really like pissed coaches off is when casters would do it, because it's like, oh, fans, like you can dismiss them, whatever, you can filter out your notifications, whatever. But when like a big prominent person like a caster would be like, oh, like Spylo and London Spitfire are dog shit or whatever, then it's like it has much more of an impact. So it was like a cool understanding that we had of like, he got to understand like, hey, as casters, we're like normal fans too, and we're trying to like just be real with people, but then we understand that we're also have a responsibility of not tarnishing your name because people will just listen to us. So it was a cool understanding.
It's weird because I remember like one of the first things I learned with content creation is that you want to be as genuine as you possibly can. You want to find people that enjoy your personality, enjoy like who you are, and all the great and creative and fun things about you kind of come out. But then like you said, it's that balance. It's like you want to be genuine, but you also have to be like, sometimes there's things that like I can't be genuine about everything, because sometimes the negative genuine things can be kind of harmful and like you said, amplified in a negative way. I remember, I won't say who or when, but there was a time past where I disagreed with a well-known Overwatch figure on something, and I got lambasted on Twitter by that Overwatch figure, and I still think I was right, but that's just beside the point. But oh my gosh, my Twitter notifications for the next 24 hours. I was like harassed. Thankfully, no like death threats. I don't think it was that serious. But dude, people were on my case for ages on that kind of stuff. And the thing is, I don't even necessarily blame the person for doing that. There was just a disagreement on something. But like you said, it's tricky. It's like, can I just never be negative? Is that just never allowed? Like, even if it feels like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like you said, it's a really, really tricky balance, because a lot of the times, sometimes those negative storylines are also like super entertaining and super eye-catching and super discussion oriented. Like if I went into Overwatch, competitive Overwatch, and I was like, who is the best Overwatch player this season? Excuse me, I gotta sneeze. Wait, no, I don't have to sneeze. I hate that. Okay, that would bring a lot of engagement, right? But what if I went into competitive Overwatch subreddit and I was like, who is the worst Overwatch League player this season? man, that would get so many more eyes. People would click that so much faster. So it's like for you, as you're trying to build a brand, you're trying to build engagement as a caster, or even trying to create a storyline, people engage more in negativity. That's just like the nature of the game. I don't know if it's
weird.
I don't know if it's human nature, if it's just everybody's so used to the positivity that negativity stands out more. But like I feel you. Like it's a crazy dichotomy to have to try and balance.
Yeah, and I think like my biggest lesson on how I should really watch what I tweet actually came from like a tier 2 incident where what was that like catfish player that like came out and was like a girl.
It was a second
and then,
win.
Like, wasn't
it
a
was
girl.
Ellie, I think.
Yeah, the Ellie incident.
Yeah.
And I fucking tweeted like, I fucking think the second win, like at the time, like my opinion's changed now, but at the time I was like, how do you not know this girl was like not a girl on your team? Like clearly the second win guys were like onto this. And I was just like really frustrated and I put the blame on them because I was like, you are fucking ruining the reputation of women who want to come into the scene, and you have a responsibility to not fuck around with that and to not make women look bad. And I was just really pissed because like when it comes to like girl players trying to come into Overwatch, that's something I'm really passionate about, and I don't like when people fuck with that. And I just kind of like shit posted like some opinion of like, I think this is bullshit, and it got like so much traction, and then to the point where like the second win like coaches or whatever the fuck like reached out to me and they're like, listen, you're a fucking influencer, you're a big person in the community, you can't be just like tweeting shit about us because you're actually just like amplifying and making the situation so much worse, and people are just gonna follow your opinions no matter what, even if you don't know if they're true or not. So you need to be careful what you say if you don't know what you're talking about or whatever. And I was like, oh, I was just like saying what I thought. I didn't know I was like an official fucking source.
Yeah.
And I felt like super bad because I wasn't trying to like drag people. I was just trying to like say my opinion.
It's close to home for you too, especially with that specific situation.
So like that whole situation just like, kind of like mind blown me of just, oh, I should, be careful what I do bitch about on Twitter. So that because everything I bitch about, I don't bitch very often, but when I do, it always gets fucking attention on Twitter. So now I never bitch about like anything unless
flattering.
I'm like, I'm ready to go to war about it.
It's flattering. Everybody wants to know what Lemon Kiwi has to say. I mean, I'm sure like now that you've been in like the pro scene for a little while, you kind of know what I'm talking about. Like, but I have this all the time. Like when I'm streaming an analysis or talking about this, especially like post London Spitfire, they're like, what do you think is the problem? Like, why do you think London lost that game versus Mayhem? I'm like, what do you want me to say? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you want me to say? And this goes into other Overwatch League teams too. It's like, because I have that experience of like understanding internal issues of the team and how they affect play and decision making, and like how everyone was like smashing on Hadi last season, but I knew that he was a really good player. He was just put in like literally an impossible situation, right? And so and I've seen that. So then I'll watch like another team player and people are like, well, what do you think is the best? Like, what do you think is the problem here? And my honest answer is like, I don't know. Like, I really don't know. Like, I've seen enough situations that spiraled from this player had a crappy attitude, or the team had a terrible environment, or there's a really bad coach, or there's a lack of confidence, or like whatever else, that like you start to realize that like it's a really boring answer and people hate when I say it, but sometimes you just don't know. Like, you really don't know. And it's like you were saying, like that Ellie storyline, it's like hits super close to home to you, and it's like super annoying, and that whole situation was just a disaster. But at the same time, you're like, man, I guess it was a little bit more complicated than I thought. And that's unfortunately the boring truth, is that sometimes the answer isn't like super catchy and eye-grabby. It's like usually complicated and nuanced, but that doesn't make for a very good tweet, sadly.
I mean, I don't envy like what a coach has to go. I mean, like casting too is just like looking at footage like for the first time. Like, I can't immediately tell like all the things a team is doing wrong. No. So that's why it's like when people are like, oh, like you're so biased, you only talk about one team, and I'm like, I'd rather talk about all the good things that the Shock are doing to smash everyone to bits than to talk about why fucking, I don't know, Paris Eternal don't know what they're doing. And it's and it's to really like go through the granular little mistakes that a team is doing would require to like take a VOD, go to 0.25 and literally like go like cooldown by cooldown and go to first person, because like a lot of the talent, I will agree that like we haven't really truly figured out how to observe Overwatch in a way that is like both friendly to the casual audience, that gives a perfect picture of what everything's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And a coach has to like go through all of that and talk to the person, like, what were you thinking when
Yep.
you did this? And you know,
Yep,
you know a
absolutely.
lot more about that. But like, I'm sure if someone were to just come up to you after a match to be like, what the fuck happened? You'd be like, well, I'd have to fucking look again.
No, it's 100%, it's 100% right. I mean, we're in there watching the matches from official POV. I mean, even in scrims, like when you're watching third-person POVs, you're still oftentimes, like, if you're just generally focused on everything at the same time, you're going to miss a lot of crap, and you're going to probably misread the situation. Like, best case scenario, you can focus in on exactly like our engages or this specific person's like positioning or this specific person. I mean, I remember used to get questions all the time from like tier 2, tier 3 coaches, like, how do you coach scrims? I cannot track what's going on. And I'm thinking like, well, now imagine you're trying to track what's going on, but you're also having to be entertaining and hold a conversation with somebody. And now there's casting. It's like coaching kind of, but also trying to be entertaining at the same time. It's like, it's hard. It's really, really hard. So how do you do that? Do you have any tips, or is it just a skill set you just had to just grind over and over again to where you've had an easier time like tracking those things?
Definitely like every meta, I like to usually sit down with some form of a coach or at least some GM player, because I'm not GM and I very much know that I don't see the game at the same granular level as others, and I definitely try to ask them like a list of stuff that is important that can make or break a fight, and then I'll usually have like a list of like kind of major cooldowns that I need to track in order to just set the fight at a good pace. Like this meta was very, very probably the hardest meta I've ever casted, and I think a lot of casters would agree, because there was just like so many cooldowns to track, whether it was like Junker Queen Shout, Brig Shield Bash, let me see, like calling for speed, like could I tell if someone boosted speed, trying to see if someone got a knife pull, because I've already made kind of this, I've submitted this feedback to Blizzard already, but just I can't always tell if someone gets punctured by the knife, and if I'm able to like tell that, then I can start a fight off of that.
That's true.
Sojourn charge, like you can only, it's really, I mean, you could tell like in third person, but it's really in first person that matters.
Even in third person, that can be really quite hard too. Because if you're in third person, if the brig died, like let's say, was it because they got knife? Was it they didn't have amp speed? Did they not have shout? Or did the brig not have bash? You can't tell that from third person, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like it could be so many things, you know?
And then tracking like health as well, because when like people would drop to a certain amount of health, I might predict that a Genji might want to be more aggressive off of that, or go in for a dash reset. So it was anything from tracking health, tracking shouts, tracking ults, because a lot of like the big differences, or at least that coaches have told me to keep track of, is the difference between ultimate charge, especially like this meta. So like which rally was up first, which beat was up first, and just really the competing ultimates, which ones were up first, being able to talk about like why that person was able to generate more. Was it because they died first in a fight or whatever? And then trying to study the interactions between ults. So if Blade is up, is there a beat up or a rally up? If there's Rampage, is there support ultimates? If there's Blade, is it Florida? Are they running Nano Blade? Like, and just understanding how they might use those ultimates. So this was just a hard meta, because it was like, first you have to track like 6 different cooldowns, and then you have to track how they're going to use their ultimates, when they're going to use their ultimates, how do they stagger them, do they stagger them, and then you do all this mental prep just for Sojourn to like one-shot somebody, and then the fight ends based off of that. So.
Yeah, and the irony is that because that does happen occasionally, but actually it feels like so much more of this meta was like team play. So if a brig died, it wasn't just like, oh, the Widow hit the headshot or the Genji got the blade killer necessarily. It felt like it was a combination of like 7 different factors that it's like impossible to know exactly what happened. You know, why did that blade fail but the other blade worked, even though they both used beat? You know, it's like,
it's so hard. And then I can't track packs. Like I remember doing like a VOD review with someone, and then I think it was a Vast. He'd be like, "Oh, the Brig's out of packs," and I'm like, "Bitch, how are you tracking packs on top of all of everything that's going on?"
There's no
I have
way.
no idea. Like exactly, and it's
AI
not
level.
obvious when someone receives a pack. Like it could be like the Lucio's Speed healing amp. It could be like Brig Inspire. It could be the Brig pack. It's like, at least for me, I was way too stupid to track packs. I'm just trying to like.
I don't think
I
that's
can't even keep
stupidity.
track of who's shouting first. Like people shout like literally at the same microsecond, and I'm just like, I literally lie. I'll be like, I think this team shouted first.
I used to get confused. I literally, there were several times during as a professional coach, I would sometimes be like, "Oh, what did we shout? Oh no, man, that's previous rally armor from the previous rally." I would just sometimes forget, and it was just like, oh gosh, it was just. And then you have the beat temporary HP as well. It's like it's a disaster. So.
Oh, everything is fucking overhealth now, so it's just like,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's at least a little bit easier to tell between rally and beat, but sometimes, it's a lot of. I actually look a lot at the UI. It's like,
Yes.
it's almost become like 70% looking at the UI to like 30% looking at the gameplay.
Yeah, it's like looking at the speedometer while you're driving. You're like, maybe I should trying to get the information. Okay, so I have one other question for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So not just one question, but quick interjection. You talked about how you had to transition from color commentary to play-by-play. Was that something that happened before Contenders? Because I know I was aware that you and Leg Day casted a lot of Contenders together, but were the roles reversed then? And then if so, why did you reverse them afterwards once you made Overwatching? And how has that transition been for you?
It's just weird because I started as a color caster in Call of Duty because I really liked the strategy of it. So I was able to, and because I played a lot of the game, I felt like, obviously not like GM levels of good,
Right.
but when you play the game enough, you start to kind of know the player mindset. So I was able to kind of explain like, oh, I think they're going for this, or
Yeah.
this is the idea around this rotation. And it was a lot of search and destroy, which is like one life stuff,
Right.
and it's all about
Yeah.
rotation. So it's like, oh, based on the amount of time that they were here and watching this line of sight, this person had time to do like XYZ rotation. So I really liked talking about like macro stuff when it came to COD.
Yes.
And because like there wasn't anything exciting about like people shooting each other and jumping around corners, so I was like, it's fucking like, I don't know how to, like, that's whatever to me.
He shot
I
him
wanna talk
again. Okay, next fight.
Yeah, I was like, I don't give a shit about that. I was more excited about the macro stuff. So I started in color, and then for Overwatch, I just realized like the fights were just so fucking chaotic and exciting. And there was a lot more characters to Overwatch. It was 6v6 versus like 4v4 COD at the time.
Right.
I know I went up to 5v5 or whatever the fuck, but
Huh.
and then COD, or at least Overwatch, I had so much energy and so much excitement about the game. I think because like I hadn't loved the game in a while, because COD, I was still working COD when I didn't love the game anymore, and because they had a new game every year. But then
Right.
Overwatch, I loved it so much, and I was like, I want to try play by play because I understand what they're doing while they're doing it.
Mhm.
So if that makes sense, so I was able to be like, oh, the Winston sees this, they're within range of like this jump, or this support is
Right.
exposed, and I was able to like know what they were trying to do or think about, and then
Yeah.
be able to translate that into like, okay, now they're doing it, and this is what's happening during the fight. And I kind of, because my style of play-by-play casting is a lot more analytical than
Yeah.
like your like action words and buzzy lines and cute
Right.
one-liners, which I would love to do more of because I would get on a lot more montages that way.
Ha.
But I like to just like narrate what's going on while it's going on.
But that's your
and-
strength. You lean into your strength, you get better at your strength, and that's what you become known for.
Yeah, and it also just, English is not even my first language, so I just like wasn't as
Really?
flowery
Is
as
it, I'm gonna stereotype.
It's
Is it
French.
French? Okay, makes sense.
yeah, so I wasn't as like flowery and poetic as like your leg day, which is like literally an English major,
Right.
and then Uber Shouts, who obviously sounds as amazing as he does. So I just like, instead of like trying to be polished and perfect like them and like super artsy fartsy the way they went through fights, I was like,
Right.
I'm gonna take a more analytical approach, and I think that's why like I grew to those strengths, and why Leg Day, who was originally like a play-by-play or wanted to be play-by-play, leaned towards color, is because like he trusted and liked my style of play-by-play, that if he was gonna take a backseat to like play-by-play, he said like once Jaws left, he was like, if I have to end up with a play-by-play, like I want it to be Lamen.
Yeah.
And that was like a huge compliment at the time because I had a lot of respect for Leg Day, and because like Jaws and Leg Day were like the big tier 2 duo at the time that
Right.
I wanted to be like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, that's impressive, and it makes a lot of sense. It gives like Day a chance to kind of spin the phrase in his head that he's gonna say as soon as he gets the space for the color. Um, has that? I guess like okay, so you made the transition well, like all that's fine and good. You said this meta was one of the tougher ones. Was there a meta that when you, I guess, in this Overwatch League season, even just like let's say a matchup, was there a matchup or a hero matchup or a meta that you really enjoyed doing play by play with?
Just literally the meta right before this one was like the best Overwatch meta there ever was. Or I don't know. Maybe I haven't been around as long as everyone else has, but that was the best one. Because what I liked was that every team had an identity. Like there wasn't like one composition that ruled them all. You would have like your teams that were good at Winston. Had your APAC teams. A lot of APAC teams were like better at ball for some reason. But like,
Yep.
you know, they had your ball teams, your Winston teams, your random Doomfist teams like fucking Houston, and everyone had their own take. Then you had London, who was like the random rush team. So it was like
Crack
so
addicts.
cool. It was, I mean, I've casted Hottie for ages, and I knew like he was gonna absolutely bang on that. And you know, a lot of the London guys, like I casted them on those heroes, and
Yeah.
I was like one of the few people. I mean, everyone who casted contenders saw those players move up and were immediately like, this is their fucking jam. Like those are their best heroes, or like I've seen them pop off on this before. Watch this happen.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that's why I think like doing those like power rankings was so hard for me because I was like, man, I know those players like absolutely slapped ass in contenders, but like you don't know what they're gonna be like against Overwatch League.
No,
you know,
it's hard too because it's like so much of it is like extenuating circumstances too. Like we've seen some great players move up. I mean, I think Vancouver is like a perfect example of where like they had a lot of cool either returning or rookie talent, and you're like, man, what's going on with these guys, right? Like, that just it happens, you know, it happens. Like the game is so much more complicated than just individual skill, and so it's I'm sure it's got to be hard for you. I mean, it's hard for me coaching. I'm like, man, I want these guys to succeed so bad. You know, they've worked so hard. You know, it's like such a big jump. Okay. Well, I mean, that was mostly all the questions I had. If you had anything that you wanted to look over, like maybe kind of show some insight into how you do things or your week or whatever, I'm completely open for anything.
What match do you want to review? We could do like a summer showdown match.
I'm so down for literally anything.
I casted so many 3-0s that weekend. It made me so sad. I casted like 3-0s. I was so pissed.
Dang, that's so disappointing. Especially as the play-by-play, you're like, oh, dude, it's gonna be so hype. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. That sucks.
It was like an easy day. I was at least like we had the Shock Fuel like winners final.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that was a 3-0, but I was like, it's fine because if we send Shock down to like the lower bracket, maybe they'll come up and be like, it'll be like a
Vengeance.
6 storyline to go from like Dallas Fuel can 3-0 them to like the Shock fucking rip their shirts off and now they turn it around 4-2 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But then they got shit on again. So
that's such a boring storyline, man. Like the Hawaii one was fun with like Atlanta like whipping all the APAC teams. Like that one was pretty cool. And then Glad's whipping it out at the end too. That was pretty cool. But yeah, this one was a little bit less interesting. The most interesting storyline was also the most depressing one with Florida and like London. Like that was like the only decent storyline. Well, I guess Dallas actually winning a stage was pretty cool. But to be honest, everybody kind of felt like that was probably coming. Had a pretty decent chance of coming. So even that was not as exciting.
It was interesting because like there was actually some pretty interesting storylines here. I'm just pulling up the bracket for stream.
Okay.
So for example, like the Florida stuff, the fact that they were like the last seed, their asses barely got in.
Yep.
They started their whole tournament getting 3-0'd to like actually making it to what top 4, what is it?
Top 4.
Yeah, top 4. Like to go from like 8th seed, you almost didn't get in to getting top 4. True. I told them that when I saw them, I was like, I know you guys are like sad and this sucks or whatever, but you literally got way further than anyone thought you would, and you got top 4, which is crazy.
Yeah, their whole mentality, I mean, publicly was like, let's just see what happens, just show up and have some fun, it's a vacation, you know? I wonder if that like kind of like chill mentality had anything to do with their success. Vancouver was actually kind of a negative storyline. What did you think of that one? Because I can tell you with some scrim leagues that they were a good team. It wasn't just matches, they were good. What happened?
I cast, it's so funny, by the way. There's like both times I casted a Canadian team, they lost. I casted Toronto, they lost. I casted Vancouver, they lost.
No.
Every other time they fucking okay. Well, yeah, I didn't cast the Vancouver shock match, but yeah, I casted Vancouver getting shit on by Florida 3-0.
Shame
I casted
on you.
Toronto. I casted Toronto losing to London. That was actually a really hype match because it was like a rematch and
That's
that
true.
was all
Yeah.
cool. But back to your question, Vancouver. So when I casted the Vancouver Florida match, let me pull up the roster. The biggest thing I noticed was like King wasn't assertive enough on the Genji, and that was pretty much like the whole difference. In my opinion, it was just like King couldn't hold a candle to who was it at the time? Florida. Yeah, like Checkmate was kind of like running him over. And if you don't have a Genji that can be assertive, then like the other Sojourn goes free low. And
That's true. That's true.
and then there's not enough pressure onto the Junker Queen. So it's like the Genji makes so much of a difference in how
Yep.
good your Genji is. And
That's
I think
true.
that's why like teams like Shock like put a lot of stock into proper, but then you kind of like you said, it's like a team play game. So although like everyone needs to be good, you also need to be good together.
Yeah. Well, Genji's also a good one because he's the one that's often like he and the Junker Queen kind of like often setting the tempo, setting the timing. So if you're assertive, everybody's kind of like confident on those two roles, then it makes it easier for the other three to kind of play catch up, you know? Yeah, it was strange because like a lot of the storylines was like King really performing well, and then Aspire obviously like just being absolutely cracked at the Sojourn, and then they were very quiet from what I remember anyway, that game.
Yeah, it was weird because I think there were moments where it was close, but it was just then you got mental boomed. And I think that like a big thing that happened on stage was like a lot of the young players faced a lot of pressure and a lot of weight on their shoulders to like travel all the way here and then do that. And I think maybe that's why
I forgot about that.
Like I remember talking to like Toronto and Vancouver about that, of just how much their players were going to be nervous to be on stage and stuff like that because it was like the first time of being on LAN or something like that. And so that's why like Toronto were kind of shaky that one day, and then Vancouver, I mean, they had to face Shock, so like that's just L. But I was surprised Vancouver couldn't even take a map from Florida. I was definitely expecting. I think all of the desk actually predicted Vancouver winning over Florida like unanimously.
From what I know, Mayhem wasn't super good in scrims. They weren't bad, but they were not like. I think Vancouver was probably the better team in scrims. So I think kind of what you said is probably very likely there's some sort of mental boom or just something unlucky or not being able to deal with the stage, and something happened for sure. I would guess. But yeah, that's super interesting. But yeah, I'm down for whatever one you want to do. Like I was wrong. There were more storylines. This is your department. This is why you do what you do.
Oh yeah, Justice. I was like, I had like a small bit of hopium for Justice because they took like Fuel to like a game 5.
Yeah.
And they choked or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, if Justice can like make Fuel sweat, maybe they'll make a decent run.
You think?
Because I'm like a big Decay stan of just like if Decay feels like owning the lobby, he will.
Yeah.
It's just whether he wants to or not.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they definitely had a tough bracket. Like going from Dallas to Toronto, who finished third, definitely is rough. But yeah, I mean, early on in the meta too, like in scrims, dude, Justice was pounding everybody. I'm literally everybody. I think they got a head start on the meta, which definitely helped. But they were pounding everybody in scrims. Like Dallas, legit everybody. But that kind of plateaued as things went on, so that's tough for them.
What else? I mean, Houston. I think the like Toronto winning over Houston. I feel like that was such like a crowd thing. Not that Toronto wasn't the better team, but like the crowd was so insanely loud for Toronto, and they even cheered on Vancouver, but that wasn't enough to buff them at all past a 1-map win. But like Toronto had insane fucking hype behind them, and it's like also in between every map break while like everyone's on commercial, they had Toronto hosts like jump on the stage and get like all kinds of Toronto hype and shit. So
that's cool. I didn't know that.
I wonder if that was like a big factor in them. Just like when you play confident and you're feeling yourself, I feel that helps your mechanics a lot. Maybe you could tell me different.
No, it definitely does. I mean, I definitely think like mechanically, like especially like our DPS players this season, like when Backbone and Sparker are playing confidently, they play really, really well. When they're not, they definitely struggle, and they're not alone in that. I think that's definitely the general consensus. I think it's like when you're playing confidently, you stop thinking so hard and you just kind of flow with it, you know? And in a match performance, especially, like that's so important. So yeah, 100% agree with that.
Because especially with Toronto, like I because although only really started like starting for this team like this meta slash like because last meta was finale and stuff, and although like just started getting subbed in, and then his Genji, like all those Genji was just like normal, like nothing flashy, not like killing 5 people like good, and then he improved so much, and Aldo had like an insane like stats wise performance on land, so it was cool to see like how many players who like struggled on Genji actually ended up just like it was like a confidence thing.
Yeah,
Like
I
especially
100% agree.
London and like Backbone too, because I always thought that London, and you can give insight or not, we can dodge this whatever, but like I always thought that Backbone's Genji was like the reason why they didn't want to play Genji and they wanted to play Rush, and it like they just like all played to their strengths. And I always like when casting him in contenders, he never really played Genji.
Hmm.
And so I was like, oh, like, man, this team is going to get rocked on Genji metas. But no, they always played to their strengths. And like, even Florida going towards that too, of just fuck the meta, let's do what we
Yeah,
want.
yeah.
And it worked out. And then Backbone all of a sudden is like actually a really good Genji. He
Yep.
just like whips that out this meta. And he's actually like really fucking good, like mechanics wise. So I was like, where was this at like Kickoff Clash or whatever, like the other metas?
I mean, I
crazy.
think our decisions with Kickoff Clash were like not just Backbone correlated. I think it was like his Mei was really good. We also wanted to exploit Ryan, so it was like it wasn't just Backbone. We want to stay away from Genji. It was also we want to gravitate towards Mei, and we felt like a lot of the times, especially in the first Kickoff Clash, that we could get away with playing it. And then obviously as time goes on, like there's metas that you can't really dodge, right? Like we put the bone back on the Zenyatta because unfortunately we couldn't fully dodge double flex support. And then with this most recent meta, it was like we have to play Genji Sojourn. We just have to. And Backbone was the type of player that like when he gets the time and when he gets the repetitions on the hero, even though he might not be known for his Genji, he was okay. He'd had time on Genji in the past, and then he gets the reps. He's a smart player. He's gonna improve. And, you know, he may not be proper level or Kevster level, but he, especially when he's feeling it, like the reps pay off, right? Especially with like, I think the London has a high practice quality over across the board, so they were able to improve at it quickly. I mean, you look at Hottie with Junker Queen, right? He's a main tank player, so not somebody you'd immediately think to be a good Junker Queen, but I think like over the course of just that stage, his Junker Queen improved. So I think like that's the key thing. It's like maybe he doesn't immediately is a good player, but if you put him in a good training environment, give him a couple of weeks of grinding, he's gonna get there.
Yeah, I mean, just big respect to like a lot of the tanks that had to learn Junker Queen
100%.
because it's such a specific playstyle. Like it's not like Sigma where it's kind of like that Sigma dance where you like know how much space you can take, but you got to know also how to give it up. But you also have a shield and a matrix with Sigma, while as with Junker Queen you have like one like what 6, 7 whatever second ultimate or cooldown, and that like that's your only escape tool. So it's like it's not even like Sigma, but it's also not like Reinhardt because that shield is also pretty healthy and that's very forgivable. So Junker Queen just required like such an amount of intelligence on macro that a lot of teams who were maybe really good at Winston or really good like aggressive teams on Doomfist, I think struggled with knowing how to engage on her and also knowing when not to engage. Because there were a lot of teams who played like the kind of this like reactive play style of almost waiting, trying to bait the other team into using their shit and then using their own shit. So it's like being measured like that, because I talked to some teams about like why were they having such a hard time this meta, and it was about almost like being too aggressive and like tripping over your own feet of just always trying to fight and always trying to like go for something when chess games like this sometimes like waiting and being passive was the better play. So it was such a play style difficulty, it felt like, for teams. I felt like the kid was like, I played Junker Queen and it's pretty easy to figure out what you're, you know, the combos and whatever the fuck, but it was the macro and like how you initiate fights that teams like couldn't figure out.
That was definitely the gap for sure, because like you said, you can use things defensively, you can use things offensively. It's like having the ability to understand the macro is like, I mean, that's a lot of the reason why Hottie was our Junker Queen player, was because his communication was so good, his macro understanding was so good. Poco's is good as well, but Hottie's is just on another level, so that whenever he was playing, there was a lot more, I guess, synergy between all the members of our team. And I think in that meta, whether you're playing aggressive or defensive, that was really, really important.
Fuel storyline too was like really cute, where it was like back to their Kickoff Clash stuff where they kind of like stopped playing with Fearless and then put Hanbin in because
Yeah.
he was like the team coordinator or
Yeah.
something. Like,
Yeah.
because that Zarya, I felt like a lot of the teams that utilized their Zarya player for like a meta like this ended up looking more successful, or just having like a really important leader somewhere on
Yeah.
the
Hundred
team
percent.
made a huge difference.
100%.
And Fuel also had like a situation where like they were trying to figure out their whole Sojourn thing, because
Yeah.
last meta having like an amazing Sojourn was such a big deal. Now it was like, well, you could get away with having a mid one sort of, but it was like between Edison and Gurio, and then they started like incorporating Doha as a Genji. So like Fuel had like all types of like what the fuck's going on with their like DPS situation.
Yeah.
And then eventually, like, because Edison was just like permabench, because like whenever you saw Edison play, it was like for Reaper shenanigans. And to be fair, like they had some like neat Reaper stuff, but like you always thought, okay, it's got to be Gurio who needs to
Right.
be the rookie superstar or whatever. And he just was so hot and cold. And even the times that he like quote peaked, he wasn't peaking as hard as like everyone else in the league.
Yes.
So then somehow I was like, when the fuck is Edison gonna maybe try some more Sojourn? Because he only played like Reaper, like stuff like that from what I remember. He was like the Reaper guy. And then finally they played Edison on Sojourn, and it was like, oh, hallelujah. Like they figured it out. Edison figured it out. And they are like a top team.
Yeah, it was crazy. We even watched him on the Ash that one match. I can't remember which match. It was right before the.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, what is this man smoking? Like, I didn't know that he could aim like this. I mean, heck, they even went through a period of time. I don't remember if this was in matches or not, but it was definitely in scrims where they were playing Doha and Genji. Sparkle was benched. Which you're thinking like, what? Why? Sparkle's amazing Genji. But
Exactly.
that's when you tie into like, there's had to be some sort of like understanding or communication gap that just wasn't working with it. And then I guess that gap was closed, or that Sparkle stepped up in some way, and then there you go. But that's crazy. You know, you'd think it'd be Gurio, Sparkle, but then you actually had a lot of shuffling going on there. And same thing, like you were saying with the Hanmin too, right? You wouldn't necessarily think that Hanmin's a lock for the hero, but I mean, obviously he's had reps and off tank, but like his communication was, you just watch his mouth moving in those matches. Like there's a lot of leadership there for sure.
Like maybe like, I don't know what you like, what hero most closely resembles like the Junker Queen playstyle? Because like maybe you could say like Zarya to some degree, because you kind of only have like the one bubble, or at least like Overwatch 1 style of like the one bubble, and then you kind of have to give and take because you don't have like any other defense but that bubble. But then it requires like different coordination of bubbling someone else. But like,
yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. I actually think she's resembles more of a main tank playstyle in terms of how she plays, even though she's more aim dependent, like an off tank, like you're shooting with a D.Va, shooting with a Hog, Sigma, Zarya, whatever. Because when you're playing the hero, the ins and outs requires, with your shout specifically, right, requires a lot of leadership, right? Like you are in, you are out. And that's something like, if you think about like when the Winston jumps in, is a Winston disengaging? Is a Winston engaging? Is a Reinhardt engaging? Is a Reinhardt disengaging? Is a Doomfist engaging? Is a Doomfist disengaging? That I associate more with the main tank playstyle rather than the, like even a Zarya, right? When a Zarya engages, usually she's using the bubble on somebody else to create space, right? And so that's the person calling, whether it's a Reaper or a Genji or whatever. But with the Junker Queen, she's enabling her team, but she's also going in too. So she's kind of the one setting tempo, and I think that's why, at least for us with London, that's why Hottie worked so well. And I think like somebody like Hanbin, who is an off tank player, has to be in like the main tank, I think, mentality, for lack of a better term, because he's the one really dictating the ins and outs of the engages as best as he can.
yeah, and I think like just even the solo tank situation for Overwatch 2 like definitely exposed like a lot of the off tanks that were just not ready to be like a solo tank. And I'm not gonna drop names, like there's no point of like dragging someone that way, but it's
we
just
learned a lesson there.
I mean, Hottie is like the main tank, but like just some teams who like tried to pick up like rookie tanks and just either couldn't develop them, or it was just tough for teams that depended on off tanks to like learn main tanks, because it was just like such a drastic play style difference of like being able to lean on someone versus you got to know how much you can take and what resources you have, which I feel like is more of a main tank mentality, or at least more known by them.
I agree. Kind of taking charge of the battlefield and like what we're doing. Yeah, 100%.
But it was also cool to see teams like cycle players to different roles, like kind of like how you said of like the bone back situation to like Dante on the Doomfist. I heard Prophet is like on support these days too.
Yeah, wasn't he
like,
playing some Brig, I heard? I'm
Yeah.
shamefully ignorant of the Eastern region. It's really a tragedy. They do all the fun stuff, but yeah, that's what I heard as well.
I swear there was someone else that had like their support player, like something in the. It's like it's weird that it's always the support players that get like replaced or something.
Yeah,
So there was
I don't know.
Bonebag.
I don't know. I mean, I guess Prophet has had reps on the brig before, and you wonder how much of that was like just communication, like contribution. Like with Boneback, it was like it was not that Admiral couldn't play Ana or whatever. He was Ana was fine. I think it was just because Boneback's communication was like so good, right? Like he was very vocal player, and like in that meta, you've got such glass supports, like having your supports like being consistently communicating to each other. It was just really a no brainer for us to at least try. So you gotta imagine that's the case with some of these like Prophet situations, and even like the Dante, right? Like I don't think the Dante was necessarily like an elite level Junker Queen necessarily, but there's that synergy, communication, whatever.
Oh, Shu. Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's the
Shu,
one.
Shu,
Shu with gladiators. I
Shu,
totally forgot.
Shu. That's
That
true.
was so. Oh yeah, Shu playing fucking Sojourn. That was so
Yeah.
memey.
I don't think they wanted to do that though. I really think that had a lot to do with the Patapan situation. And I think it was I assume it was just Ons wasn't like the word on this like the impression that I got from Ons was that very good aim, but struggled a lot with like the communication and like he struggled a lot with Soldier, the previous meta as well. So I think like you needed somebody who could take charge, who could listen, who could follow calls, who could communicate well, and I don't think Ons was that type of player, and that's why I imagine Shu was tried, considering Patapan was out.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy how just this meta exposed, or even just the past two metas exposed, like a lot of how the raw mechanics players still need to have a playstyle that can mold to the
Yeah,
team,
yep, 100%.
or that can adapt to the team.
Yep,
And I feel like a lot of players this year got like amazing fucking players got dropped from their teams just because they couldn't keep up with the pace
yep,
that the rest of the team wanted to play,
yep.
whether it's like the on situation or just like other DPS. And it's crazy, but then I still think those players are going to get picked up by a team that whose playstyle they can mold to, or like
Right,
that fits them, like a slower
right,
style or something.
right,
Like I'm sure
100%.
like Glads and Shock are very hard teams to play on because everyone is incredible, and
Right.
if you're a weak link, like you stand out, or if you're not fast enough, like you stand out.
Yeah, 100%,
But
100%. I think that's what makes players like Proper and like Kevster, like those DPS players, so great, is because their consistency and their ability to be smart and not make mistakes and know what's going on. Like they're mechanically obviously really good, but I wouldn't even necessarily say Proper and Kevster are like the best mechanical players in the entire scene. They're just the most consistent, and then they're the ones that seem to show a lot more intelligence and a lot more consistency with their play than like any other DPS role.
yeah, so it's I still think like a lot of retired, like because there's like so many players who retired between Overwatch 1 and like this dead phase of waiting for Overwatch 2.
Yep.
And it's just like, man, so many like tank players also retired, and it's like this would be like the met or this would have been their time to shine, whether
Yeah,
it's like
100%.
your Winstons that retired because main tank Sag, or it's just a lot of like the crazy DPS mechanical players that retired where I felt like they could have been amazing on Sojourn or something. Like
Yeah, I agree. I think people underestimate how much fun it would be. Like, I think there are obviously Overwatch 2 haters out there, but like it just tank was like really fun. Like it's just in Overwatch 2, it's like really fun. And then obviously like Sojourn's like super fun too. So like a lot of main tank players like quit the game out of frustration of the Overwatch 1 situation, which is understandable. But then it's like, oh, dude, it's actually like really great in Overwatch 2. It's awesome. Like it's like there's so much less CC. Your tanks have like all these new fruity things. Like you cancel Panda's Rhine, man. Like you gotta love that. So it's tragic. I'm sure they'll come back with the Overwatch 2 scene, but will they get back to the pro level? That remains to be seen, I suppose.
yeah, I think like a lot of players realize too that once you have like a good streaming platform, you don't really need to
True.
keep playing.
True.
Because I mean, I don't know anything what it's like to be a player, like how many hours you guys truly put in, but like
Many.
once if you yeah, it's if you do the dollar to hourly grind and then the
Yep.
mental aspect, like
Yep.
people are realizing that content creation is way better because there's even casters that like not myself but other, like for example Courage, like Courage
Mhm.
the streamer, he was like the biggest Call of Duty caster at the time. Like, he would be worth every single dollar you gave him. He was like the best caster at the time. And then he just got a huge platform, like doing streaming and bringing that same personality.
Yeah.
That once he made enough money, he's like, well, because the casting grind isn't like at the level of player grind, because you guys put like fucking millions of hours in. Our hours get up there too, with like studying and broadcast and la la la, and same mental pressures of being harassed and all that shit. But it just turns out that even casters are starting to quit to do like content creation and streaming, because you're your own boss. You don't need to worry about like re-signing contracts. You don't have to worry about if a team's gonna sign you next year, or like what the meta is gonna be. Like, you're
your own boss in a way.
Yeah, like you're the driver of your own destiny.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I'm worried about, is I don't want to lose more players to people like figuring that out. You know?
Yeah, I hear you. People the other day, I was looking over some of the Kiriko like footage, and I was using ML7's video because he actually broke down like what the abilities were doing, and people were asking me like, oh, tell about like streamers going to Overwatch League and ML7, and I was like, man, ML7 is a great player, but why on earth would he ever even consider going for Overwatch League? You know, it's like you're enjoying what you're doing. Like, why would you take less money and more stress and more criticism? Like, there's just no way. Like, I think a lot of players are kind of realizing that, at least with Overwatch League right now. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of stress, and yeah, like you said, it seems to make a lot more sense to just kind of use a platform that you've built and then go from there.
Yeah, the only like transition I don't get is when players say they want to come cast. That's been like the biggest disconnect. It doesn't piss me off, but it's just it's an inexperience thing. It's an ignorance thing that people think that because they know the game, they can just go and cast it. And like you and I both know, it takes a certain, it's like just like coaching. It's like you can't just know the game and then go into coaching. There are so many different skills, whether it's how to work with people, to making like a coaching program, whatever the fuck. Like, there's a lot to coaching than just knowing the game, just like there's a lot more to casting than just knowing the game. And there'll be players that will come into casting and it's not even like they're not good at casting, because everyone can figure out how to fucking cast. Like, I couldn't stand in front of a crowd. I would cry and run off the stage. And now I'm a professional caster. Like, anyone can be a caster. Like, no, you guys don't have to like name drop people. This isn't about a vast Dogman Custom, like none of those people. I'm saying like in general, like those guys are amazing, or else they wouldn't be offered all this like owl shit. All of those people have appeared on owl for a fucking reason. Okay. It's like the general mindset of, it's not just about knowing the game, because it's also like the amount of commitment you need to do casting before you actually generate revenue is quite a lot. Like, usually I tell new casters, you won't really be making money in the first like 2-3 years that you're casting.
That's crazy.
And another big thing is that players make way more fucking money. Like, if you peak at playing, you're gonna make way more money than casting. Like, and over, like, let's say, like, just a general, like, esports, like, casting salary can be anywhere from, like, 50K to, like, 100K, like, depending how, like, good you are. But, like, that's all based on, like, negotiations, and you don't get benefits, and it's, like, a year-long contract, and that's it. You get fucked on taxes, like, all this stuff. And while I was playing, I hear players are going for like 150K and they're mid. So it's like, you could be mid and be like making way more money playing, but you have to be like the best fucking caster to even get close to like a player's salary.
Yeah, I get it. I think the tough thing is too, is just like when you're spending those 2 to 3 years grinding for Overwatch League and contenders, you have to do the exact same kind of path with casting, like you said, without being paid. And there are a lot of people, or there are not many people rather, that would be interested in doing that. You know, it's the same thing with coaching for me too. It's like, you're not getting paid jack in contenders if you're coaching contenders. Like, you're like literally jack. You can't possibly do anything with that. So you really have to love what you're doing, and there aren't many people that love coaching or casting versus playing. So there's it's a tough grind. You know, it's a tough grind for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, like, when you're a player, I feel like you only have to focus on playing. Who gives a shit if you're like a big brand? Who gives a shit if you're streaming? Who gives a shit if people like you or not? It's literally like, I've asked this to coaches of like, do you care about brand? Do you care if they're like like a troublemaker or some shit. And it's like a lot of the time I just hear we only give a shit if they're like someone we can build to be an amazing player, or if they're already an amazing player.
Right.
And I always thought, like, because when you're a caster, a lot of the times you're told like your brand matter, like there's a lot of things that matter to casting, and brand is like a huge one. Like I get reached out to not because people have heard my casting, but because of like all the other boxes I might check off, whether it's like, you know, they need more women on their broadcast, they see the following and they care about marketing their show.
Right.
And while it's like, so there's people who are smart like Avast who are like dodging casting and shit like that because they know that like your day doesn't end with just doing your job, you know. And
Right.
and he obviously would make way more money not casting.
Exactly.
But like for casting, it's not just like, oh, I show up at my job and I know shit and I leave. It's like I gotta be a good brand, I gotta be professional, I gotta have people like in general like me. It's tough to maintain a job if everyone hates you, although like they should really I actually don't know if they give a shit about what Reddit thinks or not, but yeah, so there's a lot of things in casting, along with when you're like growing your brand as a caster, like people like ZP, like the people that were like the OGs would tell everybody like you need to make content and like show that you're passionate about the game, show that you care, show that you're like a hard worker through other means than just your job. And that stressed a lot of casters out. Like a lot of casters that I think like aren't like amazingly huge, like proportionate to their skill, is because they haven't done like enough to show everyone their skill or to put themselves out there. And I think that's why like some people are like mad as fuck. They'll be like, oh, these owl casters are fucking trash compared to like tier 2, or like they don't know the game compared to like tier 2 and whatever. And arguments aside there, a lot of the times like people get promoted not just because of skill, but because of all the other things they bring to the table.
Right, that makes sense. Like you said, you have to build a brand because if people are watching because you're casting, that's exactly what Overwatch League wants, right? And it makes the most sense. Yeah, so it's like a much more dynamic job than I think people give credit for.
So I babbled a lot, but we can pick a VOD now if you still want to do stuff.
This is what we wanted, right? Like it was like artificial prompts, which I was genuinely interested in, but then hey, we can build off of that. Let's roll with it.
Okay, do you want to look at NA? Let's narrow it down between NA or APAC.
I feel like more folks would be interested in NA, and if you are aware of like storylines, and maybe I can leak some insider information on some of these NA teams that we look at.
Oh shit!
Nothing crazy.
Okay, who do you know most about?
Well, I mean, the obvious answer there, but besides London, I mean, honestly, it would be mostly just like what I knew about the Scrim Bucks and like what we thought of their individual players' strengths. So I'm down for most teams in NA.
I don't know what to pick. I'm the person who's like, no, what do you want to do? No, what do you want to do?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm gonna match you there, so screw you. So good luck with that one.
Oh fuck. Okay, well, let's dodge like 3-0s.
Okay.
And go for like a close game.
Sure.
So what, like a Toronto, Florida, so we can like pick them apart?
Yeah, we could look at Toronto, Florida.
Okay.
Toronto's a pretty good team. I mean, I think most folks are pretty aware of like some of the leagues that are talking about like how they were doing in scrims, and I think Toronto and Washington early on were actually the best teams in scrims, and then Dallas catches up, caught up, but I think Toronto maintained like top tier performance in those scrims. So
we should do this like a watch together.
Yeah, I mean, however you want to do it, you can stream it Discord. Like I'm down for honestly whatever.
Oh, that's actually a good point. Yeah, I can just do that. My computer
doesn't. Professional content creators.
Totally. Yeah. I'm sure this is fine like that. Oh, the fights might be super dog shit to look at over Discord.
That's okay.
Well,
whatever you want to do.
Figure it out.
Okay.
Let me set up my scene shit.
Sure, sounds good.
Are you streaming as well?
Yes, I am.
Pog.
Yeah.
Hello, stream.
Yeah, I got so intelligent that I even changed scenes so I had your face in the background. It looked like I was having a delayed conversation with you.
Oh shit.
So it was like actually perfect. It was better than just, the blank background. I don't have the Pokemon dancing on my screen that like keep folks entertained. That's my bad. Yeah, I need to follow as well. I'm an idiot. There you
go. Okay, I think I can enlarge this.
If been studying my Pokemon as it moves around the screen for like an hour now. It's mesmerizing.
It's so fun. I don't know. I got over a lot of my stage fright just having Pokemon on the screen because I feel like I'm hanging out with someone.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. I was talking about this the other day. I was like, oh, I remember back in the day when I was streaming, I only had like 15 viewers, and then I stopped and I was like, can you imagine just like 15 people chilling in your house, just like listening to you talk? You'd be like, that's crazy. It's like somebody's like, whoa, this is like, it's kind of cool. All right, I'm gonna jump in stream here. Here we go. Yeah, this looks okay. This looks all right.
Let's see if the fights look like shit. We'll swap to like watch together.
No. This is like I don't know if you have Nitro, but this looks actually pretty decent quality wise.
Sweet. You'll just have to tell me when to pause.
Sure.
Yeah. And normal playback speed is good, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sweet.
Toronto crowd chanting at 0.25 would hit different.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the casters sound hilarious on that too. Oh yeah, this was an interesting. Sorry, I'm already pausing.
No.
But so the whole like Ash versus Sojourn thing was like a big narrative throughout.
Yeah.
There were some teams that preferred mostly Ash to some teams only. Like I think like Florida mostly played Hydron, Sojourn.
Yep.
Hisu did kind of like all types of shit.
Yeah.
And I kind of understand it's obviously map dependent. You have a lot more mobility on Sojourn, one-shot potential.
Yep.
Although it's more mechanically demanding than like consistent damage on Ash.
Right.
So like, what would you say like the maps like? What maps would be good on Ash versus Sojourn and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, high ground is always good for Ash because it gives you better angles for better dynamites. And then if you can start on high ground, the fragility of Ash is kind of minimized a little bit because you don't have to use your coach gun to disengage. You could just start in a position where it's hard to engage on you in the first place, right? So that's like the obvious one, like you were saying, like, the dynamites, the difficulty of hitting the right click. But honestly, like I could say like the two biggest things I can say is number one, it's just player comfort. Like both of them are relatively viable. It just depends on like what one the person playing likes playing better, right? Hydron is cracked at Sojourn, so he's going to play Sojourn. He's just cracked at Ash, so he's going to play Ash. I think both of the heroes are viable, so it just depends on what they want to play. The other thing I will like little detail I'd add is that like initially I was certain that Ash was something that we would want to try. I remember early on our London scrims, but like there was a lot of like skepticism because the impression is that if you like shout engage and you get your Genji on top of an Ash, the Ash has a really hard time dealing with that because as she's disengaging, unlike a Sojourn, she's not really doing a lot of damage. Like she can mash mouse 1, but that's just so much less damage than a Sojourn during that same window of time. So I think a lot of the teams that were running Ash successfully were able to kind of create more space / peel for their Ash better so that they were able to like capitalize off of that higher damage, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, because definitely like just who you chose between Ash and Sojourn mattered on maybe who your Genji was going to go after more.
100%.
And how you distance there, and sometimes they play like more reactively, like all the different Genji styles were so interesting. I tried asking coaches about like their Genji styles of like, do you go after the other Genji, do you just play from front to back and focus Junker Queen first, or do you just like hyper flank and go after Brig? And obviously no coaches ever told me anything ever, but it was something I tried to keep note on during the matches as well.
I mean, I could tell you that like a lot of it is just going to depend on the ult situation. So like if we're looking to kind of disengage fight, having your Genji go for the enemy Ash or Sojourn is essentially suicide because he's going to be left behind. So he's gonna they're gonna peel him off and then he's gonna die. So if you're looking to like play to disengage, like let's say Toronto Defiant rolls out and they're like, okay, we've got Beat Rally and the enemy team has Beat Rally and Blade, right? So although it might want to try and do there is not go for the enemy Sojourn, but because we're playing to like kite out their Blade and then match with their supports, is he's going to try and deny that enemy Genji from engaging. So that's where you'd see the Genji focus. Whereas if we were to like go aggressively, like let's say we have beat and they have nothing, as we're beating in, I'm going for their Ash or their Sojourn 100% because that's the squishy that I want to kill, or their Brig in that instance as well. A lot of it also depends on like the fight setup here too. Like I imagine on this point, you probably see people going more for the hit scan because it's so tight. So the hit scans are so much more accessible. But like in more open maps where like Hisu might be playing a little bit further back, it might be hard to engage on him consistently. So I think it's definitely a playstyle thing for sure. But it's also really every team had, I think, different playstyles even within different maps based off of like the ult situation, I think.
So I was always worried on Koth, and let me know what you think here. But
Sure.
obviously, like you said, like player comfortability is kind of that at like number one most of the time.
Yeah.
And but it feels like on Control Center that Ashe is just gonna be so accessible. Like
Yeah,
unless
I
you
don't
have server
disagree.
control, like Ashe seems like she's gonna get fucked here because it's
agree.
really close range.
Yeah.
So you'd have to have like perma control of server, or you're just gonna get your backline run over.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is definitely not the first map I think of when it comes to playing Ashe. So I can only think of two things. So one would be like you play for the Dynamite on the first fight engage, so that Dynamite's like so much better than Sojourn E and like these small rooms. So you're thinking like, okay, the Ashe isn't that good, but we guarantee win first fight off this Dynamite if we hit it, right? The other thing that's probably more likely is that Toronto, I mean, we'll have to see, but there's a chance that he ends up using Coast Side, which if you could set there up with like a Lucio and like have your Genji mark their Genji, having your Ashe on Coast Side is probably not too bad of a sightline for the Ashe. So I'm curious to see like what Toronto does with Dynamite first fight, and then if Hisu ends up setting up on Coast. Those would be my first two guesses.
And my last question before I finally unpause
Sure.
this goddamn video is I feel like Lucio's have been really freaking aggro this meta, because I always thought they were just like a kind of a human taxi to the Junker Queen and maybe the Genji, like they kind of go between there. But sometimes I'm seeing like people like Chorong just come up and just slap the backline like by themselves, and I'm just like, not like what are you doing? Like this is a wrong thing to do, but I'm like, if you lose your Lucio, like that's kind of a speed seems like such an important utility. And so what do you think about like the Lucio aggroness, aggression, I guess, this meta?
I mean, I think like if they're feeding, right? Everybody feeds at some point or another. Like, you can't sugarcoat that. But I guess like sometimes you might see some more aggressive Lucio, because one of the nice things about this meta is that the shout is in of itself appeal. So like let's say Hotba, like they're looking to engage, maybe the Lucio Showrong wants to be working with Aldo and kind of look for a dive in the backline. If Hotba is able to hit his shout on Twilight and Twilight's able to walk forward and proc his Inspire, then theoretically he's going to need a little bit less peeling, and then that kind of opens up Showrong to go a little bit more aggressive. And then kind of what I was saying with the support usage and stacking into with Genji targeting, I think that affects also the positioning as well. For example, if we have a free beat, Showrong can just go like all the way in, right? He's got beat, Twilight's going to get beat, he doesn't need a peel backline anymore. So again, it really depends. Like the shout, and I think the support situation does open up Lucius to play more aggressively, not excusing absolute like hard feeding now. So yeah,
it's only feeding if you die.
Yeah, exactly. It's only feeding if you die. Perfect. Yeah, results based analysis.
It's only feeding if you int alone as well. If
exactly.
everyone goes in, it's a strategy.
Exactly. There's the Dynamite.
So like this is so fucking aggro from Aldo. He's like already at the back. Crazy stuff. He doesn't get punished, but it's chill. Server control.
We saw that a lot from there's the coast. We saw that a lot from Winston. Or Winston, what am I saying? From Washington, they would use what we used to call like the decay playstyle, where they'd just dash decay in with like packs, and he'd go super aggressive on the backline and then just like walk line deflect out. And he would sometimes get kills, but what would end up happening is we'd always like panic and over focus him, and then like Hottie would get like screwed because like four of us are turning around for the Genji, who ends up surviving anyway with deflecting the pack, and then they're therefore like end up smashing Hottie, right? So like sometimes you'll see this with the Genjis like go hyper aggressive, but if they can like go hyper aggressive and survive, even if they don't get a kill, it's like actually so much space you get from it.
Yeah, and your ability to punish was so important. I think that also created so much chaos of like, how do you deal with the Genji? How many people do you commit to the Genji?
Yeah, exactly.
And how you communicate around that was crazy.
It's hard, yeah.
And just, server control, just shooting down Aldo, who I didn't even think was that aggressive.
Yeah.
I think I misspoke and said it was checkmate.
It's hard with Sojourn because it's like you could be like positioned well and then just like, oh, guess I'm dead. You know, we saw one the other day. Even like I threw it on Dorado or something. I think maybe it was APAC, but it was like the Genji gets like whip shot and Sojourn body shot it, and like after one frame he just dies. I'm like, okay, not even a headshot, he just dies. So, it's crazy.
And then I think here this came down to like server control for me, because I feel like server is so important because you can just run into the enemy's backline at any time, and you can't really safely push through main if they're on server. So like that's always something I like to keep note on when I'm casting. Is that like something you prioritize as well, or how would you counter rotate like server control really well?
I feel
main.
Yeah, I mean you have to kind of like open up the space through main, I guess, because if they have like the server control like locked down, especially with the Ashe, it's like your Ashe isn't going to get a good sight line to like shoot in there very easily, especially not without being the Genji just dash on top of her. So I expect Toronto is probably going to try and kind of like bait Florida to push, and then hopefully land like a massive Dynamite and then push afterwards. So let's see.
Yeah, RuPaul is using that shield
Let's see
It's
the
like, how do you even dynamite? Like, you're just
Yeah, there's
like,
the
as soon
dynamite.
as you see someone main, like you dynamite
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
Like, if
yeah.
you even look at server, they can just like instantly run you
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
So I was super worried about Hisu, and like if you lost that first fight, like how he was planning on attacking
Yeah,
with just
for sure. I mean,
you're
it's
going
hard.
around corners.
Yeah, it's hard. It is hard. Like that is definitely the weakness of the Ashe. Like even there, like this fight and the fight before, they hit the dynamite, but it's still not enough. And like right now, I mean that's just mechanics, right? Like
Yeah, he just
theoretically,
walks in. What the fuck happened? Is it Aldo engaged and Florida looked at
Yeah,
Aldo and then Hisu walked up and just
well,
free fired?
Checkmate, I think tried to kill Hisu mid-fight, but then Hisu just, this is like where we call the diff, right? Like it just, if you hit the shot, like theoretically Genji should smoke Ashe, but I just think Hisu hit the shot.
Oh, maybe they went in off of this like pretty big dynamite. Like, see, Torung's just like up in everyone's shit, and I'm just like, yo, Lucio's are built differently in this
crazy.
meta.
It's crazy.
So it must have just been off of the dynamite.
Yeah,
and,
they
like,
dynamite, they walk
getting
forward.
some good right clicks.
Yeah, and then Checkmate's like, I got this Hisu, and then I literally think he just got smoked, like just headshot then body shot.
Yeah, because a lot of like, because I know you were curious about like what I'm looking, because especially like just with caster dynamics, we have to be able to tell when a fight's about to start in order to hand off like properly.
Oh, that's true. I didn't even think about that.
And it's really hard because it's literally all cooldown based or HP based. So if I see like big dynamites and I see like a team is very, very low, I'm thinking a Genji is going to get more aggro off of that.
Yeah.
Or if I see like a shout, I'm obviously seeing, are they approaching each other?
Right.
Is there a knife pull? And I kind of see I try not to get like too hype when the fight starts, 'cause nothing actually fucking happens for the first like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But
It's not something that you can really deflect once those
You
Yeah.
get baited to getting hype, and you're like, oh wait, never mind, the other team shouted, now we're just gonna stand around for a little bit.
And like it's like ult charges are pretty. Oh yeah. I get baited into. Oh my god, they're gonna fight, and then they just like fuck off. But,
Oh, that's killed me.
oh, and then here it's like, oh my god, everyone has fucking like these fights scare the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Because it's like honestly, you can initiate with so many things. You can like beat engage.
Yeah.
You can like wait for blade and then beat the blade.
Yeah.
You can like wait for rampage and like late rampage. You can
Yeah.
just overclock and see what you find. You can just bob and like run them over. There's like
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. If you look at a fight like this, what do you?
I mean,
see.
I think like there's a couple of things that like people are really gonna hesitate to beat engage, like when there's a fear of a blade, because it's like the idea is not just that, oh, you need beat to beat like counter blade, but also like beat also gives you a win condition to push after the blade as well. Usually neither team is gonna have Junker Queen ult first. Usually neither team wants to open with rally, because then the enemy team then blades, and then you also have to beat, so you get a 2-for-1, and people hate doing that. So what I probably imagine is like Toronto, if they get their blade in time and they can push with it, they'll probably blade, force beat, disengage, and then play the fight as normally. Or what's generally the more common opener for either team if they get it in time, in Mayhem's example, is a hit scan ult, right? So like Toronto may just chill, like let them walk forward and then like respond with a bob in the backline and try and push off of that. Or Florida Mayhem may just chill, try and bait engage, and then hopefully Hydran farms up his Sojourn ult and try and get space off of that, because like those ults are like, you can't like hard counter them. They're not like super OP, but you can't like just hard counter them. Whereas like opening with a rally, opening with like a blade, opening with a beat is a lot more risky in terms of setup.
Well, is there ever a point where it's kind of like based on ego? Like if you think like the other Genji's like mid as fuck, like would you be more likely to beat engage knowing that, okay, this blade ain't gonna be shit because we probably have shout or rally? Like
yeah, you can, and you can focus him too. Like we used to do this like back in the goats meta days when they have grab, like let's just beat in and focus their grab and just full matrix their grab, but you don't even need to matrix the Genji, right? So you're just like, if like Majid could look in this fight and be like, you know, all those like feeding positioning wise, let's just run in this guy, let's shout, and then once they match shout, let them just beat on top of the Genji, like keep going and let's just kill this guy. Because like a lot of times Genji might mess up his dash, might mess up his deflect, and then all of a sudden it doesn't matter if he's got blade, he's dead, right? And then you just win the fight off of that.
yeah, I saw like a surprising amount of beat engages. I don't know if it was from certain teams, like maybe like Shock or something, but like
Yeah, could be.
it always felt like an ego matchup. Like if you thought the other Genji was like shit,
Yeah,
you
you're
would just
not
like
wrong.
beat engage.
I
I
expect
feel like
Bob
server
here.
control, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like server control. What I liked here is like it feels like Bob's cutting off rotations too, because you still have like your Sojourn back here that has to basically be like out of the fight.
Yeah, 100%.
At least Florida are smart, and like sometimes when you get hit by something that's like trying to cut off your rotations, like teams panic and like some of them
Split,
head one
yeah.
way, some of them go forward. But do you think Florida did like a good job of just
I
trying
think
to
so.
like?
Yeah, they W keyed through it. And I actually think that Florida, this is where like I think the ult tracking thing helps a lot in the Overwatch 2, because I guarantee you that they only rally engaged there because they knew Checkmate or Aldo didn't have Blade yet. And the only reason they knew that Aldo didn't have Blade yet is because they can look at stats. And they're like, our Genji's at 85. Their Genji has done about the same amount of damage, therefore their Genji is probably around 85 too. So if we rally engage, they're not just gonna like Blade on top of us. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's like a window where like, okay, we've got rally, they don't have Blade. Like, let's try and get something out of this rally.
So like, stupid question, but like,
Sure.
how does ult tracking work? Like, how confident are you that a team has a certain ultimate? Because I've heard like different things, like, oh, you think they're 80, 90, or you track it based off of your own ults, or like, how really confident can you be about, especially in this meta? It feels like every fight someone has an ult.
Usually first ults are something you should be like very, very like within 10% confidence with, because like I said, you can just check your stats and compare them to the enemy team. And obviously tanks do give less ult charge for healing and damage, but generally like you're going to be able to be like, I'm at 9,000 or 900 damage, they're at 200. They're not going to have ult this fight, right? But then as that goes on, it definitely gets a lot, much harder. And then it just kind of comes back to the old Overwatch 1 basics, where you just have like a general principle that they've not used it in like 2 fights, so they probably have it. And then also little details, right? Like everybody knows Junker Queen's ult charge is really, really slow. Everybody knows if there's been like an extended skirmish phase and nothing has really been done on either side, they probably have a beat. Everybody knows that like if they've been hitting really big dynamites, they probably have a bob, and that's just like where like your ult tracker's like experience really comes into play.
Oh gee, so it's like one person that has to track everything, or is it
usually it's a group effort that's led by one person. So one person has the responsibility of always doing it, but then it's expected from the team to kind of chime in with their own observations. Like this happens all the time, even in Overwatch League, where like Admiral will say they've got this, and this, and Heidi's like, no, they used that last time. It's like, oh yeah, you're right, yeah, that's my bad. Or Backman will be like, no, they were getting like massive dynamites. He's definitely got it this fight, because obviously Admiral can't see everything, but he's the one that's responsible with getting it started, and then your teammates kind of chime in with their own takes, like their own like, oh no, I think you're wrong here, or I think you're right here, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I mean, trying to do all of that in this
it's rough.
fight.
Yeah, it's rough.
So now, at least Sir Majed was able to. Oh shit, Toronto beat it too.
Yeah, it was a mess. It was a mess. Losing your Junker Queen first, like Toronto did, is actually disastrous. It's the most important person on the field with that shell. So now Florida can just engage with Blade really, and then beat their Blade. Here comes the Blade. You notice that he swapped a Sojourn as well. He's like, all right, this isn't gonna work. So not gonna try Ashe retake again.
Yeah, I guess you might as well just counter Blade and get the beat out.
Yeah.
But
that
and at least he did it at the same time too, because it's like if you would have waited until like most of your team is dead, then Majed maybe would have been like, oh, we've won this fight. I probably don't need to beat.
Exactly. It's the shout too, because if they get that shout back again too, then sometimes like that's another tool that you can use to survive a Blade as well. So it's like if you've seen Florida use shout and like you said, just use it. Maybe you guys can get a touch and win it out. Who knows?
I mean, honestly, you just use ults because it's like 90% now. So
the reason why I didn't like this meta as much was it's visually confusing, but I think also as well, like you look at these situations now, or like the previous fight. I mean, the previous fight, like not even this one here, but the one before. I think as soon as Toronto lost Hotba and then committed both support ults and lost, the map was over. Like it really was like 90% over, because with this meta, like the ults, there isn't like a lot of like clutch pop-off potential outside of like Sojourn one shot or like a Genji kill. So if you mess up your ult economy, you're done. It's over. And that to me is like, I like that consistency as a coach, but as a viewer, having a little bit of like, ooh, they might clutch it, that makes it more fun to watch, right? So it's like, it's tough.
I feel like this meta for Koth too, there's a lot of flips on the point.
Yeah.
It's very, very long and exhausting.
Yeah, I can imagine. Get laryngitis just like listening.
Because then I feel like in the previous metas, you could like defend better with certain comps, like your maze and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I always like I heard like different things about how to approach Night Market here.
Sure.
And I'm totally curious about your opinion. A lot of people like, from what I've noticed, and maybe Slash told me, is that like playing the point is actually pretty dog shit. You just like actually want to play either like away from the point, like around the point.
Yeah. It's
And
tricky.
then like this hallway, like
Yeah, it's tricky. So like some of the way the meta evolves with Night Market is it's always getting to point first is great, but the problem with it is that when you're on point, your cover like is actually horrible.
Yeah.
So if you're in like where Checkmate is right now, you're in that like little garden area, you could just like put so much pressure on their Junker Queen or their backline, and they end up having to like back off of point by being on point early. So what happens a lot of the time is that teams will meet up kind of on main here. But then even if you consider like where someone is right now, like let's say Toronto were to rotate in through Mega where Aldo is. If they did that, then theoretically Florida is going to be kind of out in the open, whereas Toronto is going to be under a little bit more cover. And so then Florida's going to take more damage. So it's like, I mean, it's tricky, right? It's like there's like darn if you do, darn if you don't. Like there's no real like perfect way of looking at it. I think what Florida's doing is like a good general opener and then kind of trying to respond to like what the enemy team is going to do as best as you can. I'm curious where Toronto's going. They look like they're going coast.
Meet them in the mid.
yeah,
Oh, maybe
it's
not, maybe
interesting that like some teams will opt for this like hallway to almost like have a more protective stance of just being in cover more.
Yeah.
But like Toronto are playing so split. I mean, they have Aldo over here, they have their Ashe over here,
Yeah.
they have just bitches
Yeah.
sitting main.
Yeah.
So Florida are like, okay, we're just gonna run over this
Yeah.
smaller stack front.
Yeah, I think that also had to do with the TP as well. So Florida was there sooner, and also potentially the Ashe as well. Like Toronto's a little bit like they're scared for their Ashe, right? They don't want to get too aggressive too early.
So do you just want to like if the other team's playing Ashe, you just don't want to have an extended poke phase? Like you'd rather run them down more often?
If you could, like not necessarily an extended focus, but if you can keep the Ashe in a like in a choke in a bad spot, then you can take it slow. But if that Ashe has space and is out in the open and popping your head, then yeah, you can't stay there for long.
See, it's like everyone's like trying not to play point, and if you do, like you're just gonna get ass blasted like Hisu just did.
100%. And you can see like this is the weakness of Ashe, right? He doesn't die, but look at his positioning. He has to disengage with his coach gun, and now he's literally doing air, right? Like that's the Ashe weakness right there.
He's just like out of the fight, or I don't know.
Yeah.
He just like, I think Toronto just like they obviously have to exchange poke, but like how long you kind of stay out in the open. Like obviously
Yeah.
having gardens, you have slightly better cover because
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about getting booped off, you know. But
Yeah, 100%.
like Florida almost had a cool engage, and I still think they're going for one because Hisu kind of removed himself. I
Yeah.
think he's going from. Oh, he's actually doing a roundabout.
This is improvisation, I promise you.
Oh yeah. Oh, this
This
is
is
where he
not-
absolutely farms. I remember this.
Yeah,
Woo!
yeah, that's just Hisu diff. You know that I can tell you is not coached. That's just improv. That's player
Really?
improv. Yeah, that's player improv in the moment. He got cleared out, and then he's like, crap, this sucks. We're gonna lose the fight because I'm like out of the fight. So then like his mindset is like I have to like make a clutch play here, and so he goes to the high risk high reward play. Like I'm surprised Florida wasn't able to get more out of that 5v4 sooner, if that makes any sense. That's my real question there, I think.
Yeah, I always thought it was like a player's intuition to know how to space yourself
Yes.
and how to basically counter rotate another enemy's position.
Yeah, 100%.
Because there's only so much you can like prep. Like I don't know anything about coaching, but there's only so much you can prep for
Yeah,
these fights
you're
of like,
100%
okay,
right.
we're gonna do A, B, C, D, and like, oh, we might have to switch C and B depending
Right,
on Z
right.
and fucking, you know. But then you can't really teach a player like, oh, if you're within this distance of an Ashe player, like you need to go and do this.
Yeah,
Like I feel
100%.
like the player has to make its own decisions, and I think why like coaching matters a lot in Overwatch, but like the player has so much agency, and that's why it's like when
Yeah.
a team sucks or like doesn't do well in one match, it's like fucking coaches, and it's like Overwatch is a lot of your own decision making. It
Yep,
feels
true,
like.
true. And a lot of coaching is like strategy and stuff, but it's also just like player mentality and like empowering players to kind of lead themselves better. Because like if Hisu isn't able to make that play or doesn't know to even think about making that play, it's
Yeah.
not so much strategy. It's just like him as a player getting that agency to be able to pop off when he needs to.
They're really looking forward to Florida Mayhem going through these
Yeah, see, like
forwards.
Toronto is
This
like
getting
playing
ready
this
to
tight.
bob.
So do you just like play this hallway because you just like try not to get dynamited because it's maybe
Yeah,
harder
well-
to dynamite this area?
Yeah, it's like they're trying to like. I'm trying to how to explain it. They're basically thinking that if we just walk out of like a normal choke without trying to clear some space, maybe get an angle, like then we're gonna get like absolutely smoked by dynamite, kind of exactly like what you were saying. So I'm not necessarily agreeing with this rotate, but there's like a theory of like, okay, maybe they can like rotate on, catch the Ashe, right? Like if they could, I mean, they might actually, I'm not even joking, might go to Toronto's spawn and then come out through their choke on that side, like to your very right of your screen. They might come out like rotate all the way around even further to your like literally to Hisu's
Oh.
right. Yeah, they might flip all the way into Toronto spawn and come out that way because they know if they do it with like amp speed or whatever, like we can make Hisu run away and like counter rotate, and that's our opportunity to push out of the choke, I guess.
Because situations like this makes me think like I've seen a lot of fights like happen through here, and Genjis will like climb up and do some like bullshit like right click stuff.
Yeah.
But then like some teams I feel like almost they don't like waiting around, and they'll actually try to go into these like highly defensible areas. Like if Toronto were to go inside of here, and I've seen teams like get fucked because like you enter here and you don't know where to look left or right, and the focus gets all fucked because
100%.
you can't see everyone, and then you actually end up getting punished because it's like the people that are in cover are, I feel like, have a bigger advantage.
Yeah, they do. I mean, you brought it up earlier. You're talking about how like teams are sometimes forcing that aggression in situations when it doesn't always make sense. And it's like the difference between a good and a bad team is knowing when is it good to go aggressive, when is it not good to go aggressive. And teams that just go AFK full crazy mode, that doesn't always work out so well, like you were saying.
So sorry, let's see what they do. So it's like I'm curious if Toronto actually like go in here. I think they just like wait and bob them as soon as they come out. But
yeah, I think so too. I think that's certainly the play.
I mean, when you're in control of the point, like I feel like you shouldn't be stressed to even make a move. You know, it's them that's fucking rotating forever. Like they're taking so long to go like all the way around the map, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, let's go to point. Like, why would you make the call to go to point at this?
Well, it's at this point, Florida's like, we have to do something crazy. Like this map is like so hard to retake into. So like maybe if we like amp speed to point and then set up like some tempo on point, then maybe we can make something work. Like there isn't getting out of that choke either way is going to be bad. So if you go to point, it's bad, but it's not necessarily worse than trying to take the fight on where like Hisu's position is, like to his right, like out in the open there. Because like the first fight going to point probably doesn't make a lot of sense because you guys are able to get out of the choke and meet each other on equal footing. But now it doesn't matter where you rotate, you're walking out of the choke now because Toronto has the point. So even if like Florida just walk out of that choke from their spawn and just walk straight forward, that would not have been like the neutral fight. That would have been like a lot worse, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Like maybe Florida just rotating to point baits Toronto to going inside of the point, and then Florida surround them, and then you just like lose RuPaul to this shit.
Yeah,
like he just gets booped off the map. Toronto's such a demon, man.
Yeah,
he's actually such a demon.
I can tell you from like Florida's perspective, that's like that kind of stuff is like so tilting because they actually baited the bob and like would have disengaged it really fine, but then they just died to a boop. It's like we did everything right, like strategically, but we just died to a mechanic play. Like that is like the coach's nightmare.
Oh, good whip shot, but this is still like such an L moment.
Yeah, this is mechanics and like being able to keep your focus. These crazy mixed up messed fights.
And then so tilting that I think Florida spent like 20% doing this rotation because they went through hallway and then they came back to point and then just to get fucking booped. Like you didn't even trade ults. Like that was such a worst case scenario.
2 fights in a row where the entire fight is dictated by pick. That's it. No ults, no nothing.
Night Market's a weird one. I always thought there'd be more fights in White Room than there were. Oh, let's see what this replay is. Oh, just big dynamite stuff. I guess it's not that hard to dynamite an entire team if they're clumped like that. What just happened? What are we looking at?
He's like burning, is like, oh shoot, and then he gets split. That's crazy. That's where like the lurking Genji, he's like hunting, right?
I thought there'd be more fights in White Room, but so I guess big open areas are better.
Yeah, so the reason, think about it this way, like if Toronto rolls out where they are now, okay, great. And let's say Florida rolls out White Room, okay, great. The problem here is like, unlike Night Market, where going point was like really kind of cruddy, for Toronto, like let's say Toronto gets to point and then Florida Mayhem's coming out of White Room, that's actually like a dog choke for Florida Mayhem to push out from White Room towards point. And the cover on this point is like actually super nice. So Toronto would be like, yeah, come on out of White Room. We beat you to point, and now we have the cover on point, and you don't. That's kind of like the strategy here. It's definitely rough playing out in the open, though.
It feels like, I always thought maybe it's like the different types of cover, too, of like if you push main, you have like this little statue bus stop looking ass thing. You have Dojo, which is a lot safer to be in. But like if you push White Room, you cross the bridge, and then you can get like, your secondary point of cover is like the walls around the point, which then you get fucking booped.
Exactly.
So it's like a good choke if you want to funnel people in that certain way. So like with a Ryan comp or like a May comp, like you want to play super narrow like that. But I guess here, since you want more shorter points of cover, then main makes sense because of like this
Yeah,
pillar
can you
and
imagine
dojo.
can you imagine like Hisu getting an E on White Room as they're pushing on a point? You know, like for like Mayhem would just
Yeah.
get cooked, like or Dynamite as well, right? They just get cooked, and like you said, the boops as well, like the cover, like you were saying on either side outside of point, like the Florida Mayhem's starting to hide off of point where they can get booped. Toronto's can hide on point where nothing can happen. The cover's great.
Yeah, the cover on this point is really interesting because it's like it's owning like one half of the coin,
Yeah.
and how
Yeah.
you push past this half is interesting once they even go to point. But right now, everyone's just poking each other forever. These are the fights that are exhausting as fuck to watch because you're just like, okay, no one's low enough for the Genji to do anything. The shouts happened, and you're just kind of waiting for the hit scans to like do something.
Yeah, exactly. I'm curious if that was like the decay thing. Can you go back like 10 seconds?
Oh,
if you don't
sure.
mind? I'm curious to see like when he dashed in, like what Florida's response was. So both teams trade shout. He's gonna throw some shurikens. Like let's see like what Mayhem's response was. Brig turns around. Yeah, see that's kind of like you see how Brig Lucio turn around, and then all of a sudden Toronto like takes a 4v3 essentially. I mean he dies for it, but if you can get double kill for one, you'll take that.
There's just like so many like little things happening of whether
Oh
like
yeah, it's so
Hisu
hard.
and Hydron are like dueling or you know just looking for picks on their charge. Although in Checkmate are probably looking for RuPaul and Twilight positioning.
Yeah.
And then keeping because sometimes like randomly that aggression turns to the Junker Queen if she's not managing her resources properly. Then
Yeah.
she's like focused down more. So there's like a lot of I guess like health is a big thing.
Yeah,
I
it
try to
is.
keep track of.
Yeah, it is.
Right in your face like that. I mean, Twilight, Twilight and RuPaul both. on these
So this is
great
when they
series.
have to do
Like,
the
so
white
why-
rotate.
So like why go white here?
Well, because cause it's kind of like Night Market actually, where like both teams roll out main because they can get out of the bridge or the choke before the enemy team gets there, right? But now the enemy team is set up, and if you try and go bridge now, you're gonna get cooked. There's like so many boops, and that corner is like so nasty. So then teams
Oh,
have to
yeah.
go white. It's like it's actually second. Like this point is like actually, and honestly, really a lot of Legion is like so rough to retake. Like it's like there's no good option to retake. I'm not even joking. There were like strategies with like May goats and May strats where we'd literally like wall across, or like we'd fake one side and then amp speed and pin across the other side and try and have your Lucio deny the enemy Lucio boo. Like there are legitimate like strategies that are just created just so teams can like find a way to retake this map because it's so unbelievably hard.
That's probably like why Florida rotated forever on
Yeah,
that market.
like
is
yeah, you have
retaking
to
is
come
so
up with
hard.
something creative because it's rough. I mean, this is still rough, but
Like, so do you have to use shout? Oh, it looks like they didn't have to use shout to cross. So
no,
that's
no,
nice.
no, that's nice, yeah. But you see that either that like, E just like completely cuts off the back line. Oh, there's your mechanics.
So now it's So now it's just it feels like such a DPS matchup where it's like
Yeah.
the wall kind of like stops a lot of, and then you have like Genjis and how aggro they want to be over this
Yeah,
wall,
100%.
and Junker Queens just have to exist. You know, however
Yeah,
difficult
yeah.
that is. You know.
Yeah.
So Checkmate just gets absolutely boinked. Fucking whip shot, shield bash. Twilight I thought was so fun to watch.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's another kind of like the role swap, sort of, kind of, not really, but a little bit of role swap. At least for us, Landon like has experience at Brig, but I don't know if Twilight experience on Brig is that extensive.
Damn, just Toronto's like always going after RuPaul here. Who seems to be like, I feel like obviously there's no safe way to position as a support on like
No.
Koth, because it's like you have to be with the team
Yeah,
and
yeah. Again,
you're
mechanics.
accessible at all times.
Yeah. Brig is a very punishable hero in this meta for sure.
Trunks such a fucking demon. How did he not die for like the 10 seconds
Such
he's
a
getting
rat,
chased
man.
by
Such a
someone?
rat. I don't know how he does it.
Oh, that's a knife. I think that's knife.
Yeah, I think so. It's weird because he
Oh,
like delays. He
Jesus.
delays the pull, you know, so it's sometimes hard to tell.
Yeah, because I think that like knife icon, like I can never tell if that's like in a person or if
He's
it's
on the
behind
floor.
them.
Yeah.
And then because sometimes they do delay it just to like hold them in a certain way, and
It's
Hisu is
crazy
real
how
fun to
Toronto
watch.
stalls that so much without losing people on point. Like they peel like 3 people back, but they're still able to like stall point out at the same time.
See, that's what's so exhausting about casting some teams. It's because fights are just. It feels like they're always fucking winnable. Like casting
Yeah.
Shock and Glads, like they'll play like 3v5 and invest ults. You know, they like
Yeah.
always think it's winnable. Just pre-blade.
Yeah, I mean, because like look at the clock, you know, it's like 1 kill here is like brutal. It means Mayhem's never gonna get like a 5v5. It's over.
Summer Shed is there. Okay. They
Like,
do spot him and
there's
he
the
is through,
kill.
but he does trigger
Now
ulti.
here comes Hydran.
5 on the point is the
I mean, by the
Rampage.
time Hydran
So-
gets there, the fight's gonna be
yeah.
over.
And then someone actually just rampaged Hotba instead of like maybe point. but-
Yeah,
I mean that was kind of fucked anyway.
It was some sort of miscommunication or something. I think people like the C9s happen so much more often when there's like no off tank. Like it's actually unbelievable. Like just relying on your diva to be able to touch or have at least one other body and cart. Like it just doesn't. It's crazy how many more C9s have happened this season.
It's so funny too. I actually casted like the worst C9 of Summer Showdown. Fuck, what was
Oh,
it?
that was it. Go back a little bit. That was the one we were wondering about. Like, did he?
Wait.
I think it's just like bang bang. Yeah, there it is. That's it. But he's the checkmate. Remember the checkmate dash and Hisu, and like he just died.
Yeah.
That was it. Just the mechanics. That's crazy.
Was it London? I think it was a London C9 where it's like the Junker Queen thought they had like cart touch and they didn't. And they just like walked away. Yeah, I casted.
That's
I
brutal, man.
swear, I've casted like such horrible C9s. There was like one on Hollywood too. It was like Hollywood C, and the cart was like right at the choke, and like the team like thought they had touch, and then they didn't, and the round just
no.
ended. I forgot who that was. That shit was so funny.
Awful. Happens in scrims all the time too, man. It's hilarious. Power.
God gets so boomed.
Yeah. Paraiso. I've been practicing my pronunciation. I had to like look it up in Google and like smash the what is this like the stupid pronunciation thing over and over and over again. Like I got this.
Oh yeah, dude, I've said like 20 different times like Paraizu.
Paramap.
Paramap.
Yeah, Paramap.
New map.
Yeah. New map thing. What do you think
This
of this
map
map, by
just-
the way? I was just about to ask you.
I casted like the Twitch Rivals like Overwatch thing, and
Yeah.
they like showed this map, and it was like full hold central on.
Yeah.
It's just so like defense heavy. It feels like you
Yeah.
have like great high ground and cover.
Yeah, it's
You
brutal.
have like a literal hallway that you can just I'm mousing things, but
I mean, I
the
can see
hallway
so,
on the
yeah.
right. You have like a super long sight line for your defensive Widow, Sojourn, whatever.
Yep.
That the attackers don't have as good of sight lines as the defense does.
Yep.
And the only way to push, this feels like so Paris-y, but slightly more open, is that you only have to just like run through main
Yeah.
and try to push the defense off the high ground
Yep,
that they're
it's
already
rough.
on.
It's
It
rough.
feels very Paris-y in this like first area.
Yeah,
and then
it's
it's like
rough.
you win this fight and then you have to probably win another one to go to the next point unless you just like people ignore and just go to point and
Yeah.
fight on point.
Yeah, it's really, really tough. I mean, teams have gotten a little bit more creative with it because the choke at least is a little wider than the Paris choke, but it still is really, really tough.
Oh yeah, it was Nixel on Hollywood that had that egregious point CC9.
Oh, jeez, that sucks.
I had that NYXL Hopium.
Haha.
All right, it's like a lot of teams I've noticed just fucking run through this shit. Sometimes they'll go through stairs, sometimes they'll like dash in on the Sojourn, or sometimes they'll just run to point. So I don't really know what's best. It seems like
Yeah.
look for the opportunities kind of strat.
I mean-
like
Yeah, I mean that's really it. Like you can have like little dashes and bashes and baits, but then you just kind of have to like react to how the enemy team responds and hope that you're able to punish the split. You know?
Ronaldo's just fucked here because Pack wasn't available. Rough.
Yeah, that's tough. That's where you
Yeah,
need to
'cause-
start tracking like all three packs, right?
Oh, of course. Like
That's
one,
what you need to
two,
be like.
three,
Well,
go.
actually, he was 1.5 seconds away from having his pack. Otherwise, they would have won that fight. Really.
It seems like so hard for the Genji to actually push the defensive Sojourn.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think
It's
that's where
rough.
Aldo failed here, is like he just, and especially with the Sojourn, you just shift and you can go like 3 miles
Yep.
away within
And while
like
you're
one
shifting,
blink.
you're shooting. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, so it feels really hard for a Genji to like gap close on that point.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
But I don't know what the fuck happened with Florida. I think they just like dropped from high ground and shit got messy.
A lot of times, what happens is like the team attacking will, like walk through the choke and kind of bait something, and then sometimes the defending team like gets on different pages, like with like who they're focusing or where they're going on, and then like you can catch a Lucio or you'll catch a Genji without deflect, or maybe at the same time as you're pushing underneath, your Genji will wall climb over and try and like distract whatever, and then you're able to focus down their queen. Like you have to be like pretty creative with these.
It's just like a dwindling process of like,
Yeah.
I think this fight just like it took 2 minutes for this to be done, and
Yeah.
they got only a tick,
Yep,
and
it's rough.
Oh, fucking pre-engaging here you don't usually see, which is
Oh,
interesting.
There's the weakness of the Ashe though. If that's a Sojourn, they're able to fully kite that out. No problem.
Oh, so that's why. Oh, that's why they like to
Yeah.
pre-engage.
Yeah,
'cause
I
of
mean
the
it's
Ashe.
it's definitely better versus the Ashe for sure because he's just slower, you know.
I just thought the Ashe would be like out of range of dynamites because I guess like yes, you
Yeah.
can dynamite this bridge, but then don't put everyone on the bridge then, and then Ashe gets no value, right?
I don't disagree with you. Yeah, Ashe definitely feels like it's definitely rough, right? It's the same kind of thing we were talking about in Control Center, right? Where we're like, ooh, I guess you just have to play to like bait their engage and then play like a little bit further back towards your spawn and be like, ha, like you kind of see like Toronto wins that there because like they early push, but then they like kind of baited them, and then Hisu's like way in the back all of a sudden. You know what I'm saying? Just popping heads.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Florida have now done that 2 fights in a row of just like pre-engaging, and
Yeah.
I mean, Checkmate just got heavy punished on
Yeah.
his blade,
Yeah.
and that's why I think like if you're gonna pre-engage like that, you have to know like the spacing so well.
Yeah, exactly. And I wonder, like, was Hisu, like, when they pre-engaged, was Hisu with his team, or was he a little bit further back, like, just kind of baiting the engage, right? Because then if he's further back, they can engage, but they can't reach the Ashe, who they need to reach, right? That's the problem. But I'd have to look again.
Hold on a second.
Oh, we can look again if you'd like. Here.
Yeah. That's my specialty. Just talk about something, and then, you know, way after it occurred.
So it's like,
Yeah, look
I
at
don't know
Hisu's
why even
positioning.
chances.
He's like by the brig, bottom of her screen. Like, he's not
So
even
he
on.
just-
He's not even on screen right now.
Oh.
He's not even on screen.
So I think Checkmate got whip shot, and then there's like a disruptor shot here. Oh no, that's Hydron's disruptor shot.
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
Somebody must have.
He
clicked
gets
it.
whip shot in the air, and then he at least gets
Oh
the
wait,
one
that's
kill.
it. It's
but
an Ashe shot. It's an Ashe shot. He eats an Ashe shot.
oh,
Because you see like how smart Hisu was. He was playing so far back and baiting them to push, and then they did push, and then Hisu's just like, all right, you can't reach me, and then he clicks the head. Like he didn't get the KD, but that was like 150
what the
damage.
fuck? How
Yeah.
the fuck do you even get this bob over here? Oh, it just like came up the staircase or some shit. Like,
Maybe, yeah. Maybe got Lucy booped. I don't know. Or whip shot.
Maybe.
That happens sometimes. Did you see that one from was it Fen, who on Ilios Lighthouse, where he like whipped the bob and the bob path was diverted and went off the map.
oh, that happens sometimes. Yeah, those are really cool.
Those are
I don't
super
know.
cool.
Are
Yeah.
those like even calculated, or is that just like?
It's calculated
random?
on that map specifically, yeah.
Oh.
Because there's only a specific spot you can aim your bob for it to like go in a point and not go off the map, so the brigs just mess with you. So the big brain play now is to miss it on purpose and let the enemy brig help you.
Oh, gotcha. This part of the map is like so weird. So I've seen teams like hold like that high ground where someone is. I've
Yeah.
seen teams just sit at the choke, like this is like King's Row from point to B, you
Yeah.
know, choke.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've seen also teams like go through this whatever door like on this blue building
I don't
and
know
like
what it's
come up
called.
around, just like basically go through and like come up on the enemy's defense or attacker's high ground somehow.
Yeah, there's been spawn camps in this too. This is like a super weird point.
It's crazy. And there's different ways of doing it. It seems like a lot of teams like that
Yeah.
greenhouse high ground.
Yeah.
But it seems like some teams also want to hold choke and force 2 fights, because if you
Yeah.
only hold that corner, then
I
you
just
only
think
have kind
Florida
of one
died
fight.
late. I guess I would be my guess that they're like I don't know if we can,
Oh.
I guess they weren't able to set up close in time. I mean, it looks like they might actually be trying to do it anyway here. Who knows?
Sneaking around.
Yeah, they're just kind of like sit out in the open.
Florida's got to bait some ults out here.
Someone's just like so fucked. He's like on the opposite side of the road.
Yeah.
But okay, he goes on. Oh no, he's still kind of on this off angle.
Yeah,
Not sure if he's like drawing attention. Now he's
He's
just getting
isolated.
actually fucked. So it's like sometimes I don't know if they're baiting or if they're actually just in a bad position.
I think this
because
is an
I'm like,
actual
surely,
mistake. Yeah.
like surely this is calculated, right? But
Yeah, I think like go back like 5 seconds, look at all those positioning. I think although accidentally isolates.
all those like pressuring.
Yeah, so like Aldo like clears their brig and Genji, I think. So he's like here and he's like shooting shurikens, and then the brig Genji disengage, and then someone's by himself. This is where like the communication is like so important, because if like someone doesn't like know that, then he's like cooked, you know?
I suppose he doesn't just go after someone with that blade, because someone was like the lowest person. But
Yeah, well because he knows the beat, so he's thinking, you know, the Jax, right?
Oh, did he jax the beat?
Yeah, he did.
Oh,
And-
shit.
And the thing is with Ajax, like if you can get on top of the Lucio, you either Ajax or the Lucio doesn't beat and you win the fight anyway. It's rough. It's rough. And
Poor
Magid is
Lucios, man.
yeah, Magid is like a good player, but he's not a Lucio man. Like what is Magid supposed to do if he's this close and the blade is on top of him right now? Like
You just chance that maybe
you-
your
you-
break's gonna
yeah.
get like a whip shot
well,
or
the
something.
key thing is the fact that someone being isolated forced shout. So then Magid,
So then they just bladed after.
right? So then Magid doesn't get shout to get his beat off. Like I promise
Yeah.
you, Toronto's like they saw shout and they're like, let's just blade. We can Ajax this guy because he's not going to get shout. Because if Magic if they still have shout there, Magic gets shout, gets the beat off. It's fine. But it's like sequential, like right, and it's although it takes an angle, clears out RuPaul and checkmate. They kite out, which leaves someone isolated. They don't communicate that well with someone who then loses a lot of HP and has to shout out. And then Toronto goes, oh, they have no shout. We do. Let's blade in. And because Magid doesn't have shout, we can kill him with blade before he gets the beat off. It's crazy. It's like all this stuff happens in like 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's also just so intel heavy, like what you can see and how you position based on what you can see, and just obviously like playing that corner is the right play, but then not knowing that Genji's on top of you is
Yeah, exactly.
unfortunate.
Exactly.
Unfortunate
exactly.
timing.
It's like the right idea, but the execution wasn't there, right? So
Dude, what in the
that was
Jesus.
that was crazy.
So it's like someone gets completely ignored. Toronto just like beat engage into the supports who are obviously in this building.
Yeah.
And then someone like rampages out, beat goes off, but I don't even know. It's like it feels like when you get rampaged, beat and rally shit doesn't save you.
Yeah, it depends how much rally armor you've had, but like Chorong took so much damage to begin with. I don't know how RuPaul survived. I think they were trying to beat on RuPaul, but somehow RuPaul like juked them, like hid from them or disengaged entirely. Because theoretically, even if RuPaul has like rallies, if you're able to beat and get on top of the brig, she should die. But somehow RuPaul like I swear he like juked or hid or something and survived.
That's what's so sketchy about going inside of like
Yeah.
like buildings that
Yeah,
people
you were
are
talking
hiding
about
in.
this earlier in Lijiang, right? It's just exactly.
Yeah, you just like don't know where people exactly are, so
Yeah.
you kind of just are ulting in and hoping for the best. And
Yeah. He's gonna bop point. He might bop point. Weird
so it's like,
Bob.
why
Weird
Bob? Yeah, it's like why not Bob behind them and force them into a fight?
I honestly don't know. I don't know. I think this is just like a brain fart, honestly.
Like maybe he thought they were engaging, but they were actually speeding backwards.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Oof.
Oh, there's the
Bye,
mechanics.
checkmate.
Yeah, I mean that's the Ashe, right? As soon as she gets space like that, you know, she just does so much damage.
So I mean, as soon as like you lose your Genji, I feel like
Yeah, it's hard to
kinda,
come
you
back
lose
when
so
you're one
much
down.
agency. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess like anyone dying is like
Yeah,
rough.
yeah.
Once again, the ultimates from Twilight and Hisu
All right, this will be
are
interesting.
good.
Blade for blade. Well, no, actually, no blade. Blade for nothing. Can Toronto like disengage the blade? Because you need shout plus all of your cooldowns to disengage a blade here, unless the Genji chokes, which happens.
So like, dude, like how is Checkmate gonna get any help here? Like someone has to be way more forward, but he's taking so much poke, just like waiting for Checkmate to like do something, and now Checkmate's like, oh fuck this, I'm not getting shout, I'm not gonna get rally,
yeah.
like.
Yeah, it's tough.
But his position completely revealed. He's got the Dragon Maiden in his back pocket, but look at the rotation for the Toronto Defiant Rose. They're taking the high
Nice
ground
little flip. Like Toronto really doesn't want to fight this until they get like a.
Yeah, I was gonna
support
say I've seen like positions flip like this, so is this
Yeah.
who's this bad for?
I mean, this is bad for Florida because they had the window there when they have the blade, and Toronto doesn't have anything. And then now that window's like kind of gone now. Like Toronto's able to play it slow, kite it out, and now like Toronto's built their blade. Now Toronto can build their Juggler Queen ult. And Toronto might not do anything until they get beat, or try to not do anything until they get beat. So let's just see.
Because I always thought maybe it would be bad because if you're cut off from your own respawns and the fight takes a long time, like your respawn reinforcements are
Yeah, that's true.
just like isolated and cut
that's
off.
true.
So
Hey, let's think about this from the Ashe versus Sojourn perspective. I
Oh.
feel like Ashe would benefit from. I just thought of that. I feel like Ashe would benefit more from this, like them being like at a slight
Yeah.
distance. Like
well, she can just poke away, and
yeah, exactly. Like someone can't peek that.
maybe that's a better dynamite like angled
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, there's the blade.
Checkmate's yet to pull his.
Oh,
He's already found the kill onto Chorong.
that was just too deep from Toronto.
Dude, they didn't even have to invest beat. They just thought that was a limp ass
that
blade.
was just too far. It's just they went way too far with that blade. No follow up from the team there.
Clean shot.
Maybe it was like the team getting frustrated because they were like looking for a blade opportunity for a good minute or two,
Yeah,
and then
I
at
don't
this
know.
point it's like, fuck, we just need to like at least trade.
Yeah, that seemed like a major
Trade
beef,
beat.
though.
Toronto to fight, they've got to break this.
Yeah, because now Florida can just like beat engage with a minute left,
Yeah, true.
or beat blade, I guess. Whatever. Would you rather beat blade or just beat engage then blade?
I mean,
or...
I would probably beat engage wouldn't be bad here, but I guess having beat for Junker Queen ult is still nice, though.
Oh, true. Dude, this is just chaotic. Everyone is dying.
Rally for
Everyone
rally.
is healed.
Yeah.
Oh,
Here
here's blade
comes the
after.
beat. There it is. Yeah. That's a lot of ults, though. And somehow RuPaul dies. Did RuPaul not get beat? Like what?
Oh,
How?
let me see.
How did RuPaul
Yeah, RuPaul's
die?
been kind of like singled out a lot.
Yeah. Did he get? So he's got rally armor. Rally for rally.
And he's in this
He's
corner.
right here. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so
Oh, what are the?
Prox whips doesn't hit it.
Oh, he procs whip and his team is
Uh,
disengaging.
Oh,
Oh, he gets rampaged.
He gets rampage and he somehow dodges. He doesn't get beat. Look, he doesn't get beat. Where is he? Where is he?
Oh, beat is like over here somewhere.
Wait,
Yeah, he
how
just
does-
like doesn't get beat.
Wait,
I think I can go
how?
back
What the heck?
frame by frame moment. Wait a
Does he get
minute.
it? Does he get it? Does he get it?
I'm trying to. So here's like beat all the way over here. So is it just a range thing maybe?
No, I don't. Maybe.
Because
yeah, maybe.
Hydron gets it.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
Hydron's right next to RuPaul.
Shoot, that sucks. That's like actually like micro detailed, and they lose the trade, and that's like fight losing too. Because like
So is that
obviously-
Mashed thing? Because he's on fucking Narnia beating right now.
Nah, I mean,
but-
I think that's because he had to play because he just got Ajax, right? So he's like spooked. He's like, I need to get this freaking beat off, man. I'm not dying. So I don't know. Because
I don't
RuPaul
wanna
dying
jax
here is
this.
actually a disaster.
Does
Because
it just mean you can't hold the choke? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
you
30
can't
seconds
hold-
left.
right, you
You
can't
probably
hold the
just work
spawn.
rampage.
and like maybe they have faster respawns too. So like
What in the? Why did he rampage there? What's happening? I don't know the numbers actually, so that probably matters.
He did use that beat.
I don't know. I think he was just trying to like clutch it out or force the beat. Like at
Clutch
lea-
it out, just clutch.
I mean, yeah, it was a messy fight. You know, if you hit one person with Rampage and they're killable. The funny thing with Rampage, if like, especially if they're a support and they're like 150 HP, they're not full. You hit them with Rampage, unless they get beat, they die.
Damn.
Because they just slowly watch themselves bleed to death. It's great.
It's great.
Mayhem's in trouble though.
So this
Bob
is like
and Blade.
an interesting part because you can go under this like green building
Yeah.
and access like the mid part of the cart where the cart is.
Yeah.
You could rotate high ground and just like poke them down, but
Yeah.
then the defense is like, or the offense is like on the opposite high ground.
Yeah.
Or do you? Also seen teams just like straight up hold the back of their spawn.
Yeah.
For their sojourns. So it's like
Yeah.
weird.
I think with the Ashe, Florida probably wants to push, and also they have to try and kill that Ana. I think.
Oh yeah, I forgot that Twilight just like
Twilight is-
randomly does that.
He's goofy, man. He's going out there. He's going on these clutch picks. Yeah.
He's goofy.
Oh,
Why
that
does it do
nade!
that?
Whoa, what the heck? Nade
a
dynamite
fucking-
combo. Look at that. RuPaul was already low as it was.
Oh shit! He tries to shield bash back and then he just
Gets
couldn't get away.
dynamited. That's hilarious.
That's so
That's
rough.
it, man. Look at Hydra and someone's HP too. GG's.
Yeah, that's just rough.
I mean, I still don't think it's. Ooh, maybe? No. I don't know how Mayhem are like clutching this, but if Mayhem clutches that somehow, that's gonna be like insanity.
Hydron just uses jump, so he
Oh,
can't even
no.
touch.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's crazy.
Unlucky. So do you think that's been like RuPaul's been dying a lot? Is that just like good focus, or did you see
Yeah.
anything wrong with RuPaul's stuff?
I mean, I think for the most part, it just felt like a couple of goofy ult trades for Florida that didn't make a whole lot of sense. And then like obviously like that's the thing about this like this meta is like you lose RuPaul to a really stupid like goof up, and then like that like completely because they would have just held spawn doors and won the fight.
Oh, here's that crazy dynamite. Oh, here's nade and then dynamite. That's crazy.
Yeah,
actually got fucking
that's
exploded.
rough. That's rough.
And that nade hit like 2 other people too.
Yeah, that was
so-
actually crazy.
I actually think these widow shots are just so useless. But
Yeah, it's-
we've only seen that work like once.
Yeah,
Was it Backbone,
was
too that
Backbone,
got
yeah,
it?
it was Backbone. The reason I think I think is because a little bit of scouting information plus the ult charge is free, so you like might as well.
As check
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not exactly like a super impactful like big brain strat.
Doesn't get away with it
Rip.
though.
or where they'll like double Widow. They'll like do the first jump, wait a second, and
Yeah,
then do the second
that
jump.
is a little bit absurd, I will say.
And it's like, as a caster, you always have to sit there because it's such a make or break moment that if you do get that Widow shot, I feel like
Yeah.
you just get folded this fight.
Yep.
So it's like I have to like entertain the 0.001 chance.
Yeah, and it's
that some-
technically happened too, which stupid backbone, man.
Stupid
We could have made fun of these people, but they've done it once, so now that's going to guarantee the next 900, like 1,000 tries. They're like, oh well, maybe it could work.
Yeah. So random.
All those like, where did Hydron go? He
So
actually just
Florida
got
just
duped.
like run to point. They like kind of held the high ground, dropped the point, chased
Yeah.
after the back line, and
All those just got juked,
Toronto
man.
did.
All those
Toronto
like,
didn't kill anything.
nah, all those like looking for Hydron is like, where's he go? Where'd he go? Where'd he go? He turns around, the fight's lost. Like, oh,
Dude, looking for Sojourn when she jumps away is kind of hard.
miserable. Yeah, yeah. All right.
Now,
Ash.
oh, what the fuck?
High ground, though.
What is he
Uh-oh.
cooking? What is Checkmate cooking?
These cheeky angles.
No way. Okay. Okay, Twilight's just got a big dick. Twilight, I swear to God, you can never like step up to him. He's scary as shit.
Yeah. The awareness is so big with Brig, you know, never being surprised by Genjis, always know where they are.
As he plays over the rooftops. But Toronto, they're
Twilight
still
like
making this
checks
very
like
close hold.
Genji so well too, so
Yeah.
I understand the fuck off. Yeah, this is the engage that I think I keep seeing that is so like catches me off guard as a caster.
Yeah.
Because you always think they're gonna hold choke and then you push this like blue or yellow building and then
Yeah.
you appear on that high ground.
Yeah. Well, they were trying to like isolate someone because if you go back, like Lucio and Genji are on an adventure.
He got booped or something, right?
Because like look right here, look in. Wait for checkpoint. Wait for it. Left of your screen, right there. So like Lucio and Genji are like on an adventure. So Toronto's like, yo, let's get these guys. They're isolated. But the problem is if someone can kite and survive just barely, Checkmate, Hydron have like power angles on their backline. Like as they walk out of that choke, it's like actual like insta death. So if someone can just survive, Checkmate and Hydron are gonna like murder them for walking through that choke. Like look at the angle, like look at the crossfire these guys
Yeah.
have, you know? Like look at the crossfire here, ready? Like they run into someone, and then you can tell Hoppa's like, oh shoot, oh shoot, oh shoot, they're all around me, they're all around me, they're all around me, they're all around me. Yeah.
Well, like Hoppa got just like chased down the kill. Like, oh, I guess it's like you can't really just sit there and poke as like a Junker Queen, but
Yeah,
you also just expose the fuck out of yourself dropping
yeah,
down like
yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly. Like if you commit on the kill, like on the drop there, and you don't like chase down someone and get the kill, then you're dead. Like you gotta like commit or don't even go for it.
Yeah, they can. And
Because that's like the part where you can like force that spawn cap. It's like if you go to that high ground and then
Yep.
like the other team counter rotates back to their spawn and then you hold that choke.
Yeah, yeah,
But-
yeah,
Then that whole like dropping off high ground thing is where shit hits the fan.
yeah.
when, you know, checkmate, Hydron, someone, they're all building up to
And let me know when you want to tap out too, by the way.
Sure. Let's finish up. Let's finish this. Let's finish this map. If that works for you.
Yeah, that works.
I desperately need to shower.
Good to know.
Okay.
Okay, Florida. Oh my God, these fights scare the shit out of me. Where it's like everyone's 90, 80,
Yeah.
has their ult.
Yeah, and the funny thing is you have all these ultimates, and it'll boil down to like which team used shout better, like some micro detail, or they all traded ultimates, but Hotba hit a knife and pulled in the so and so. You know, it's like come on, it's crazy. Okay, trying to think here. I think if I was Toronto, I don't think Toronto should do anything aggressive here. I think they've got power position for their Ashe. You just shoot cart. Florida might try and blade or might try and aggressively push with Sojourn ult and to just stack, like literally throw all of their ults at the wall and hope that they win this fight. Because if they do, then they get the cap and then they can just kind of play slow for third. But let's see.
Yeah, I kind of like where Aldo is because if they round this corner, then he can just like drop on the break,
Yeah,
climb
exactly.
back up.
Legit, perfect.
But-
Yeah.
And then Hisu's got Twilight here. Hotba, I mean, could anchor cart just to keep the fight at the corner.
Yeah, yeah.
But we'll see, like,
A rally as well.
I think
Okay,
it's
he is
like-
gonna go anchor
Yeah,
card,
he is.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
On the high ground, they might just be able to pincer the mayhem.
but now Hisu's so accessible because Florida were able to
They
move
get
up.
under the
and-
Ashe. It's big.
Okay, so you had Rampage, Rally, that's it.
Yeah.
Rampage.
And there's the weakness of
fine.
like the Ashe, right? Like she gets bullied out of space so hard, right? Like obviously Toronto or Florida committed a lot more, but like you can see that like Hisu gets dashed on instantly. He's running away. Whoa. Oh, he didn't get beat. Not that it would have mattered, but he didn't get beat, man. That's
Wait,
crazy.
who didn't get beat?
Although I think they were trying to clutch it. I think they were trying to clutch it with like Chorong coming out with beat.
Okay,
But-
here's
but wait.
dude. He blades at like fucking 2 HP. Here's beat, and although never gets beat.
Ha, that's wild.
I wonder. I don't even know how did he not get beat though? Where is
know.
he?
Oh, it's
here's-
inside. And
I
wait,
can't even tell where Chorong is actually.
Chorong is right. So you see like the like Surmajed to the right. Yeah, right there, right with your mouse. He's right behind the wall. And Chorong, I think, might have gotten body blocked because he was trying to get outside. So like, because there's like that cast time of beat where there's like a full second where you can get beat, but he just got like body blocked or something. Like he could, like someone was like holding him in the
Damn.
choke.
That's so sad.
That's like actually tragic.
That's so fucking tragic.
Huh.
Oh man.
I don't think it would have
Yeah.
mattered, but yeah.
That's one thing I track too is like Genji dash range. If
Yeah.
he's within, if he's super close to like an Ashe, I'm like, okay, here we go. Like,
Yeah, you know
give
where
me
he's
the
going.
mic.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
All right,
It's a pretty sizable time ban.
Toronto should win this fight.
Yeah.
Defensive Bob plus Shout versus Blade, and then you can push with your Junker Queen ult afterwards. Or you can defensive Queen Junker Queen ult. We've seen that one too. Let's see what happens. Or Florida might just push with Bob or something. Or Toronto, excuse me.
Yeah.
Points on this map. But Checkmate again is trying to find a
It's kind of a
Alright.
crazy time bank though.
Yeah,
Gotta
it
hope
is. That
Toronto
is
can win
crazy.
something.
barrier as well. This damage will be good and it will be clean.
Oh, Checkmate being a little sneaky beaver. Okay.
Haha. It's not the first
That's
time.
some scouting.
All right.
So like, I guess they want Aldo to anchor cart, not Hoffa. Now, Checkmate just gets to go up there and get a kill for free, I guess.
Yeah.
It's weird because like Toronto like gave up their high ground to like anchor cart or something. Like I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
Or-
so it looked like Aldo is on cart, marking cart, but somehow he gets like removed or something. I'm not sure what happened, and then Hisu gets isolated.
it's like it's weird because it's like where is Twilight to protect Hisu? It's like
I
sounds
don't
like
know where
Toronto
Twilight
like
is
gave
right
space.
now.
It's like it's Toronto gave space so that Checkmate couldn't just climb up and like, you know, dash onto Hisu.
Yeah.
But then Toronto were like, oh wait, we don't want to give up that space. Let's go back to cart. And Hisu's like,
Yeah.
alright, I'm
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Walks
Yeah.
up and then gets Genji. The whole thing they were like trying to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we were talking about, like with the communication, like synergy and leadership. Like you lose fights off of like miscommunications. Like legit, just lose fights off of that.
He's been holding onto that blade
So if
for a
like
while.
there's a Hisu's on a different page, that's it. You know, that's the fight.
Yeah, it's like I wish I had time to like talk about the macro stuff in fights like this, but I'm honestly like, oh, I have to just list off the list of like freaking cooldowns that are happening.
Yeah, it's a mess.
So here's Bob
It's
to
a
be like,
nice
fuck off my
kite
high
from
ground.
that. That's a nice kite from Mayhem.
No one got knocked up, so the Bob didn't stop. So now he's just chilling.
Oh, here's a question from chat. Why is no team running Torb to shut down Genji? Which is like,
Huh.
a funny question, but it's honestly Torb used to be run
Yeah.
to like do that.
So I think like the big thing that like made Genji miserable versus Torb was like not Torb himself, because he's got like a massive head and he's kind of slow and easy to kill. Like Torb versus Genji, I think Genji should always win that 1v1. But the difference was like the turret, right? So like the turret's like the super auto aim, holds down an angle, anti-flanker, really, really annoying, right? So the problem with running a Torb in these kind of situations, meme or not, is that if Sojourn she just shoots the turret, or an Ashe just shoots the turret. Like Torb is more of like a good anti-dive counter when there's no hit scan or like any sort of range damage on the field. But as soon as you like throw in an Ashe or throw in a Zen or even heck like an Ana, like then all of a sudden it's like you just break the turret and then that's it. Like
Oh
even
yeah, I forgot Sam did that.
Yeah.
Sam did that.
yeah, it's like it's hard. It's like hard to get consistent value out of him. And like you can hide your turret, but even then it's still like pretty quickly broken by any sort of range. And then that's why you're playing to counter Genji, and then now your Genji counter is gone.
Especially like on maps where you have to travel certain distances and
Yeah.
reestablish that turret. Like
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
on Koth it could be like a funny haha thing to do, but
Yeah, yeah.
even then your turret just gets run over like the rest of your team does.
Yeah, yeah,
but-
pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Although his ult's still pretty decent.
He is. Look at Chorong,
Oh
too.
yeah.
Getting a little low there.
All right,
but
let's see what happens here.
Twilight
Probably see a
moves
blade
north.
engage.
Oh, we got booped.
Still a lot of
Oh,
space
bashed away?
though.
Oh,
That-
he
that-
didn't want to keep going.
So here's the thing, like, okay, so this is like the blade strat. All right, watch this. So go back just a few seconds. So Mayhem like or try to full disengage, right? There's the shout, there's the the everything, right? The amp speed, the boop, the bash, the whip shot. So you're like, oh, checkmate, like you didn't get kills with the blade. But like where on earth is Hoppa right now, right? Like where is that guy?
Yeah.
That guy is in Narnia completely by himself. So even though checkmate doesn't get the kill, like Hoppa's like totally by himself. So he's kind of did his job, if that makes any sense. So like
I wonder if that's like the call that Florida made of like, hey,
Yeah.
checkmate, you can chill. Let's turn around and deal with Hoppa.
Yeah.
If we kill Hoppa, we win the fight.
Yeah,
we
it
don't
really-
need to.
yeah, it could
Yeah. I mean, killing Twilight would have been dope, but Twilight actually just popped Rally, but I don't think this
Too
saves
late.
Hoppa, right?
be. No,
yeah.
it's over.
But they
Yeah.
tried to, so now they're like, oh fuck, now we have to 4v5 Rally this.
Right, exactly. And Florida's just
Florida
like,
can
we'll
just
keep pushing
fuck
cards.
off.
Yeah, exactly. And then now
And
it's-
use their own Rally.
yeah, 100%. Pre-rally and then just use your rampage and like legit anybody who touches cart, it's over.
At
Should
least like
be over.
although anchoring is kind of nice, like kind of have to have someone do something here
Yeah,
until
true.
Hoppa gets back,
True.
which feels rough. Now Hoppa's back. Here's beat
be over.
from Majed.
Should be over. Nobody's dying. Nobody's
And then like
dying.
you draw Toronto to card to rampage.
How?
Everyone's so low, Jesus Christ. Okay, at least checkmate is getting resets. Someone's like body blocking,
way they
like
win
that.
Okay, we're good. I was about to be a little concerned for
Took a
Florida there.
while.
Toronto did such a good job there, like splitting attention and being like, it's like the giant, like all the flies, like just landing on the big giant, you know, and just baiting the SWAT here, then left, and here, then left, and that, like Florida didn't know which way to look, you know, like that was way closer than it should have been.
That's where it's just like, oh my god, brig low, and then it's like, no, Junker
Yeah,
Queen
exactly,
low.
exactly.
There's so many important targets.
Oh, was this the body
is it-
block? Was this the body block?
Oh yeah, is it? Okay, here's Blade. Beat. Oh, so
He body
wait,
blocks him. He did.
I'm so confused. What's happening? Oh, here's. Oh, okay. Someone body blocks Chorong, who's in here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so rough.
That's
That's
crazy.
so rough.
Couldn't be more one.
That's so funny.
That's the
man.
Winston mentality coming in.
Yeah, exactly,
Me
exactly.
stand here. Me body
Yeah.
block.
Big man, stand still.
They know just how much damage.
You wouldn't think you'd be able to body block because it's just like she seems like Junker Queen seems like a smaller hero to do
Yeah,
that
she
with.
does. She does. I guess it was just big enough for the situation. I don't know.
No spice. Thought Sir Majid was gonna
All right.
But maybe that's slightly Chorong being a demon to his fault at that point.
Yeah. Okay, well, Ash to the back.
So they just like were able to just freely push under, while Toronto are just vibing.
Yeah, I think why is because like Checkmate went ahead and tried to like, whoa, what just happened?
You got knife pulled.
Oh no.
You see it right. I don't know how he gets. Oh, right here.
Yo,
fucking-
wow, what on earth?
From RuPaul was cracked. What?
Toronto like let Florida do things. I think that's what happened. They just
Yeah,
kind of like
it feels like
waited for
Hisu
Ash poke.
wasn't able to do anything. Like I'm not sure if like Checkmate was like threatening Hisu, but like Hisu did like actually 0 damage on the choke at all.
Yeah, because he's actually on fucking passive ult charge.
Yeah.
And he was alive that entire
All right,
fight, so
what's
Hisu's
he
back
doing? What's he
here.
doing?
He's
Yeah,
dodging
see,
the
it's
Genji.
Checkmate. It's Checkmate. Yeah, it's Checkmate. Like bullies, and then Hisu backs up.
Which I think is the right call.
Yeah, at this point it's too late. Yeah, I mean that's
And he probably
that's
doesn't
really
have
it.
great sightlines anyway. And
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
Toronto just are in the open.
Yeah, we were talking about like Ash for Sojourn. I mean, there you see it right there. You know, like if the Genji can get pressure on the Ash, even if you don't get the kill, she just doesn't do anything. Like they just walk through the choke. It took no damage. But she's too busy looking at Genji. Wow, what a cool map.
Interesting.
I did not
What a
see
cool
this match.
map.
I didn't see this match, so I'm like, oh, this is crazy.
I think I was watching it, but not to like super micro detail.
I mean, you're also like doing that to your. I mean, I know exactly how it is, where you're like gassed from the matches where you're doing your job, and you're like, ugh.
Oh yeah,
I just
what
want
was
to
I
relax.
casting after this? I think I was. I don't even know what order this was. So this was on the 10th at 4 o'clock. What else did we have that day? Forgot what matches. I must have been
know.
like, I must have just done another match.
Was it all the lower bracket final 2 that day or
Oh yeah,
semifinal?
I
Final?
did. Oh yeah, I casted Houston Toronto stomping Houston,
Ah,
and then we only had the one match that day because it was a 3-0 Lamau.
ah,
So
okay. Rip. That sucks.
it was good though because we got to cast Toronto, which was
Yeah.
Wait, did we cast Toronto Houston? No, we didn't. I'm lying actually. But we casted Toronto London. That was fun.
Yeah, that was definitely a fun match. It was fun for me anyway. So
it was a cool like because it had such a good storyline because they had just like matched at the end of the qualifiers.
Oh yeah, true. That's
and
right.
then it was Toronto
season.
turf, and then it was like leg day being like British and London stan versus me, Canadian.
Oh
Toronto
yes, I didn't even
stan.
think about that. Yeah, there's the nationality war. Although
that's
you
why we
lost the
wanted the
battle,
match.
but you won the war. So how's it feel?
Yeah, dude, I made every Canadian team lose. I casted the London Toronto lost. I casted Vancouver Florida, Vancouver lost.
But Toronto
big
did
L.
end up beating London in the standings, and that's all that counts.
Yeah, all I
right?
had to do was like not cast it.
Yeah, apparently you've got like the Midas touch, but all in the wrong
I got
ways.
the fucking Midas
The
touch.
reverse Midas touch.
I wish
For
I could have
Canadian.
gave Shock a map because I wanted at the very least a 3-1.
Yeah, that would have been fun. I don't know. I felt like the maps were at least in the grand final were relatively close, but it still was the
I mean,
fours.
Fuel were just like that good. Like,
Yeah, Fuel were crazy, man. Fuel were crazy. It's like it was their meta, you know, the speed meta. But
yeah, and that's what we were kind of like teeing up during our like narrative drives that we were just like,
I mean, it's
this
true.
is just kickoff clash. This is just kickoff clash Fuel where
Yeah,
they were like
yeah.
second place and we're kind of supposed to win slash
Yep.
like, but now Gladiators aren't here, so who actually is gonna stop Fuel but Shock?
Yeah, exactly. And
So-
Shock was surprisingly did as well with like Violet, Lucio, and all that kind of like Violet and Lucio ended up being actually quite good, but like Shock was not the first team you would think to do well in the meta, and they did like remarkably well, I think. So
Do you think like Glad's not making this tournament affects like Reiner's chances in the like Rookie of the Year conversation?
Yeah, it has to. I think it has to. I mean, I think we always have to factor in the final stage as well. I think it's like always frustrating when here's the thing. I realized this the other day. I was like, the problem with like MVP and All-Star voting is it's like the technical way to do it be to wait after playoffs are done, right? Like to find the most valuable like over the course of the entire season. But the problem with that is that when the season's over, nobody cares. Like the people don't like care as much for. So like what ends up happening in like every sport is inevitably you have like the MVP voting happens like 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through. People are already like locking in their votes, but you don't have full information. But I think like with Reiner, like he had a crappy stage. You know, he had a crappy stage, and I think he was already behind Proper and Kevster as it was, or well, I guess Proper for Rookie of the Year. So I don't know. I'm actually really not sure because I think Proper has a good argument for MVP as well. But then who's your Rookie of the Year, right? I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I think like because even Shock, I mean, still Proper it wasn't like killing 5 people, you know,
Yeah,
as he
yeah.
usually does. But I'm messing with like S+ perfection Proper to
Yeah.
like A+ Proper, you know.
Right.
But at least like Shock got to the finals, while
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, Glad's to their opinion is that they got good late. Like,
Yeah,
do you
they
agree
did.
with that, or is
yeah,
that troll?
I think so. No, I mean they were good. They were definitely good late. I think that's unquestionably the case. I mean, this is what I was talking about like early on in this meta with like the mentality and like the leadership and stuff. Like, especially early on, like the meta wasn't like that broken down. It just was like teams with like good hive mind and good teamwork and good synergy. And for whatever reason, the Glads just were crap in the bed when it came to that. Like they just were on different pages, different timings, whether it was Reiner or the team or internal issues or lack of Patapan or whatever. They had the mechanics. They just sucked as a team. So that was that. And then they turned it around, whether it was space or just kind of like getting in their groove. But at that point, it's just too late. It's kind of tragic.
Yeah, Rookie of the Year and MVP conversations are so hard this year with like how many
Yeah, it is.
rookies are up, and I still think it's like Proper, at least like my opinion is probably like Proper Rookie of the Year, and then maybe Kevster MVP.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's just like too DPS focused, because I also want to give credit to like tanks
hear
who
you.
like
I
had to
hear you.
learn different things.
Yep, I 100% hear you. It's the same thing in everything. Everyone's always DPS oriented, but it's always like, it's tricky, you know? It's really, really hard. Yeah, I have no idea. Well,
That'll be cool.
Jen.
GGs though.
haha. Jen,
Jacob.
thank you so much for doing this. This was awesome.
This is fun. We should do it again sometime.
We should.
Invite me.
I feel like I learned so much doing this about your background and your past and casting and all that kind of stuff and what you guys are looking for. So appreciate you taking the time. Sorry I was running a few minutes late. But I'm
it's
going to absolutely enjoy the heck out of that shower.
Okay.
But yeah.
Bye, Jacob.
Appreciate
stream.
it. Have a wonderful
Bye.
rest of your day. And I guess I'll keep in touch, all right?
Keep in touch.
Cheers,
Bye.
Jen. See ya. So that was Jin, aka Lemon Kiwi, Overwatch League caster. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Got some insight about not just, I guess, casting in Overwatch League, but also the path to Overwatch League as well. So that was awesome. But you guys can check her out. She is continuing streaming. I'll actually probably host her at the end of our stream. But you guys can check her out. She does a lot of her own content stuff, and that was awesome. Not sure if they should have someone get MVP if they have 0 stage finals. I mean, yeah, but like the thing with the MVP is like you shouldn't have to be a finalist in finals to be an MVP. Like imagine if like Paris Eternal were like kind of mediocre the entire year, but then like they kept getting carried by like Dawn or Dove or whatever, and they won like they only went like 50-50 over the course of the year, or maybe even less than 50-50, but like every single game that they won was like deadlifted by one player, right? That player should be in contention for MVP. Because if you remove that player had a monumental impact on that team. So it's like this discussion always happens in sports. It happens in legit everything. So it's impossible, because I understand what you're saying, because you're like the most successful teams were probably boosted by the most successful players. You're definitely right, but it's hard to like know exactly like. And to an extent, it is a popularity contest as well. Like you notice that like I never bring up Eastern players, right? Not because Eastern players are worse, because I just don't watch their games as much. I don't know the storylines. I don't know who they are. So like I have a heavy Western bias, which it's hard to be impartial. It's hard to be. I mean, even Lemon Kiwi, who's an Overwatch League caster, isn't as familiar. I mean, I was an Overwatch League coach. She's an Overwatch League caster. We don't know jack about the Eastern region. And part of that is the league structure kind of sucks, but part of that is just like the nature of just not watching the games as much. But yeah. All right. I'm going to head out. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And plan is next week, streaming on Tuesday, Thursday as usual. We might have another collab on Saturday. We'll see what we can do. I will keep in touch with how things are going to be going. Exclamation mark coaching. I don't have anything else. We're just going to raid Lemon Kiwi. Goodbye. Wait. Form the raid. We're forming. I really like my idea of screaming at the end of stream, because it just makes it like